Hello, and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. My name is Ollie. I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at OllieFresh. That's fresh with a PH.
And my name is Klaudia, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia Says, Kaludia Says. My pronouns are she, her. Less and less social media since we don't know if TikTok is gonna get banned and Twitter's dying, and I don't know.
Guys, we're entering this stone age, which sucks because how am I gonna hear what Supernatural cast members are getting up to in their free time?
Please, people will send it to us via carrier pigeon at this point.
Imagine you get a carrier pigeon and you open it up and it's a printout of a GIF of and it's like Supernatural has a GIF for everything. Never forget. Sorry if my audio is a little whack. I am recording in my bedroom because my desk is full of boxes for some reason. So I'm holding my mic in my hand like a TikToker would. Like a video podcaster, so I'm holding it like up to my face, so we'll see how that turns out, but we won't know until it's in God's hands.
Also, thank you for rejoining us after our little holiday hiatus.
No, we're so back. It seems like the world is kind of not back. It seems like everything's a little bit fucked. Check out our show notes. We're just going to have like some links and stuff for if you want to see what's going on in the world, see if there's any ways you can help. So, we're going to try to keep this a positive, fun space, to give everybody something to enjoy while it feels like the world is crashing down around them, which just keep in mind, it's Supernatural. So no one's ever really quite happy on this show.
And we will be talking about murder, the literal apocalypse today. We'll be talking about all those things. It was a little funny when they were like, look at the storms and whatever, and I was like,
like, we're fucked. No, but we must persevere. We must stay strong. It's very important that we're all here.
Yeah.
I know you come to us, the two of us, for all of your everyone's concerns, because there's nothing else good going on in anyone's life but us. That is a joke, obviously. But yeah, but we're gonna have fun here. So lay your head down.
Lay your weary head to rest.
That's what I'm fucking saying. That's what I didn't even mean to say that. And that's, you know what? Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. We are here to talk about Supernatural.
Oh, God.
And we're going to get right. We're going to, you know what? We're just going to get right into it because we've got some bangers today.
Yeah,
we've got one episode that I remember being so fucking embarrassed by and hating that I actually watched this time and was like, this episode's actually pretty good.
Except for the one line at the end where you go, oh.
No, because actually it was kind of slay. I thought it was fine. All things considered, for the time, I thought it was fine, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, so both of these episodes have a lot of iconic moments in them. I know that people disparage on season 5, but I think they are both good episodes.
People being the people on this podcast. There are haters on the podcast. There's haters in the chat as we speak. Supernatural's ops are here.
The haters and the losers, one might say.
They're the haters and the losers are in the chat. They are on this call. In this podcast.
These two episodes also introduce some pretty major characters, pretty big players. They say goodbye to some big players and say hello to new ones.
Had me honestly jumping up and down screaming. I'm so excited. Don't spoil for
and it's not even Castiel, okay? There's a character in Supernatural we are excited about who is not Castiel. Breaking news.
Here's the problem. I feel like there are so many characters who I like from Supernatural who aren't Cass and who aren't the Winchesters, but it's like all of them. There's like maybe like 3 Supernatural characters, honestly maybe 2 Supernatural characters that I'm obsessed with other than the Winchesters who don't get like totally shafted by the narrative. So it's like, it's so exciting. That's true. No, I you know what? Now that I think about it, I feel like every single character in this show got shafted by the narrative. Never mind. But I was gonna say, like,
wait, Dean literally gets shafted by the narrative.
But I'm just my point is that there's so many characters on this show who it's like you'll get attached to them, and then they'll have just a deeply unfulfilling end, and it's like
oh.
And I think we'll talk about that a little today. So
we shall.
we shall.
This first episode, when I realized what it was, I was like, oh god, we're gonna have to talk about Winchester again.
Yeah, guys.
Spoiler alert.
We are luckily okay. I'm gonna say there's not a lot of Winchester in this episode. There's no. Okay, I'm gonna say Klaudia, I think, has shipping goggles on and doesn't know how to interact with anything normally, because I didn't think it was implied Wincest. I didn't think there was Wincest. Claudia's always looking for Wincest. No, it's true. It's true. She's a closeted Wincest shipper. I know it. I don't have proof, but I will find it.
I'm being slandered. Oh my god.
Guys, we're bringing a new energy in. It's 2025. We're being like, if you thought we were mean to each other before, we're being way meaner to each other this year.
I normally send like funny comments about the episodes to Ollie while I'm watching the episodes, and Ollie will text me every single week and go, "Can you just take some fucking notes instead of texting me?"
Well, no, okay. No. Because I tell you to take notes, and the reason for that is that when we're talking about the episode, and I cut it out, so you're lucky because people just think I'm an asshole, but I cut out all the times you being like, and what happens next? And I say, this happens next because I took fucking notes.
Ollie, you can leave it in. You can show that I'm an idiot. But I don't care.
Beloved, it's not interesting. I don't want the viewer. I'm trying to cover your ass.
That's true. I literally, I'm like, I don't care. It's fine if I'm an idiot.
Well, I do, and I'm the one who has to edit it. So I'm trying to make you. I'm trying to create an engaging show for our listeners.
Okay. So this episode is called The Real Ghostbusters, and you'll see why in a second. We have our normal like recap, whatever, and we jump right in, and everything seems a little. I don't know. The word cinematic is not the right word, but everything seems like a little heightened already. Like we've jumped in midi res, like
very high octane.
Yeah, high octane. Sam and Dean, they're like they've driven all night. They're going down the highway in their car, and they reach this place called the Pine View Hotel. They got a text message from who we will find out soon. And they run in, and in the parking lot, they pass a bunch of other black 67 Impalas. That's right, a bunch of their own cars. And they're like, what the fuck? And they go into this old local hotel, and who do they approach? Chuck. Actually, it's in front of the building because I remember the shot. And they're like, okay, you texted us with an SOS message. Like, what's wrong? And Chuck looks like visibly like uncomfortable. He is like, well, and then he's kind of confused, and he's like, why are you here? Like, I didn't text you. And Sam's like, yes, you did. You said it was a life or death situation. And then our least favorite character in Supernatural shows up. And you're saying, who could that possibly be? And it's Becky. That's right. The super fan of Chuck's writing and the cult Supernatural novels shows up from atop the stairs and is like, hi, it's me. And I was like, oh my fucking god.
Well, first of all, the thing she says is, oh my god, Sam, you came. Because if you'll recall, she's literally like in love with Sam. She's obsessed with Sam. She's literally like, I do think it's kind of hilarious that it's like if you had your favorite thing that you were like obsessed with and had been obsessed with for years, and then suddenly like you found out that the character from that was real. Like, imagine all of these girlies making like freaking Gojo thirst edits, and then suddenly Gojo's like, hey guys, I'm real. And then it's like a freaking people are acting like the second coming has arrived. That's how she's acting about Sam Winchester being real.
Yeah. And the comedy that they like purposely put in the episode is that she doesn't give a fuck about Dean. She does not care. Now, the part that's not funny is
that's like real Sam girl behavior though.
I kind of respect it. Like, but the problem is I don't respect Becky because she's a freak about it and not in a fun way where she's a weirdo to Sam. And she's like, surprise, I'm the one who texted you. And they're like, what?
Yeah, and Chuck is like, did you steal my phone? And she's like, I borrowed it from your pants. And he's like, okay, girl.
Oh.
Right. Chuck also problematic behavior in this episode, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and this is again where we have to state that this is before the writers realized they were going to make Chuck God. So looking back on this in retrospect is insane.
It has to, no, because I keep seeing people like in the Supernatural Wiki, because the Supernatural Wiki is a lawless land. We love and appreciate them. We use them all the time. However, it is a lawless land. But people in the Wiki and online are like, oh my god, this was foreshadowing. I'm like, no, I think they just got insanely lucky and saw fan theories that like managed to like create some insane like connection that wasn't really there, but like if you squint, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like, but people are like, no, it was planned. I'm like,
and the funny part is that this episode jokes about that. Like, this episode gets a little too meta in ways that they didn't even realize. There's a joke about it at the end that I find to be very funny. And she's like, I borrowed his phone, and then there's this man at the top of the stairs who's like, okay, come on, Chuck, it's showtime. And Sam and Dean are like, huh? And Chuck's like, I'm sorry. And they go inside, and what is it? It's a Supernatural fan convention. Yes, we have referenced this episode before.
And also, I must make it clear, like, many of you are likely thinking of, like, especially for our younger viewers, our younger listeners, fan culture, especially in the, like, pre-Tumblr, pre-Twitter era, was very different than it is now. Like, these meetups, like, I mean, they still have people still have meetups now, but, like, because back in the day when you were like in an online fandom, like if you were a fan of something, you would have to go to forums or websites like specifically built towards this, like specifically built for your fandom, so it wasn't all centralized in one place, a la, you know, like a Tumblr or Twitter. You had to actively search it out. So these communities were often like a lot like tighter and often had like specific members. So like they did throw like meetups and like quote unquote conventions like this.
Well, and to be
it's
fair,
like,
in universe, these books are, they do have a small cult following, and they are out of print, so it being a small convention and it being, like, the first convention also makes sense.
Yeah, but I just want to give people an idea, like, this is not, like, this hotel is, like, a small, like, hotel, and they have, like, maybe 40 people there?
Yeah.
50 people?
It's like a historic local hotel where some nerds on a forum organized for this, like, niche fucking book series that nobody has read. Yeah. And these are the vibes that Sam and Dean are walking into. I mean,
guys, nerd culture in, like, the late 2000s, early aughts was so
and here's
so
the thing
special.
Like, you watch it now and you're like, oh, they're making fun of nerds, but here's the thing, they're not, though. Like, some of it is spot on.
Yeah, it's a little too much of a read at times, but also this is because here's the other thing, I feel like this is one of the episodes, like, there are so many episodes of shows like this where they're like, oh, the characters have like a fan convention, and it's basic, and Supernatural is guilty of this later, where it's basically just like making fun of the fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's very Sherlock season 3.
Please.
Where
God.
It is season 3 where he
Are
comes
we
back.
talking about Sherlock on our Supernatural podcast?
Dude, what else is new? But it's like when they're like trying to speculate how Sherlock came back to life, and like everyone's like making fun of, like, it's clearly making fun of the fans. Yeah. Supernatural is guilty of that later on, I think, especially when they realized that like a lot of their fans were like younger women. Yeah. And queer people. But like right now it's kind of like, this is kind of before that, and before that was like a trend. So this is almost like like, it's still making fun of the fans, but it's definitely making fun of them more like, hey, we're right there with ya, as opposed to a like, you fucking idiots care too much about this thing that we ask you to care about.
Yeah, like, the wild part about this episode is that there are some wildly funny things where they clearly understand the pitfalls of their own show, and there's also some wildly heartfelt things in this episode about being a fan. And then they'll revert to something like outwardly homophobic, and you'll be like, that is the Supernatural experience of like, oh, this is actually quite good. Oh, never mind.
No, okay.
Like,
I feel like this. I will maintain. I don't think this episode was homophobic. I think Klaudia. We'll talk about it. We'll debate. We need to talk about what the actual episode is because we're just like yapping, and many of the girls do not understand yet.
Okay, but people like when we yap. But so they enter. There are people who are dressed up as them. Obviously, that's harrowing for Sam and Dean.
It's really funny because they walk in and a guy looks at Dean and goes, "Oh, hey, Dean." And Dean's like, "Oh, and who are you supposed to be?" And he turns around and he's wearing like the same necklace. And he's like, "I'm also Dean."
And then they flash to like some of the biggest hits of like, especially season 1 of like the Hookman and Route 66 and like the Clown and like different like classic episodes from the first few seasons that they said canonically were in these books written by Chuck. And so you see people dressing up as the monster. There's this guy who's dressed up as the Hookman. He comes into play later, which is why I mention it.
I notice also like in the background, there's in a couple scenes this one like person who's like a really dykey version of either Sam or Dean. I'm not entirely sure
it's
which
Dean,
one.
Because I
do
noticed
they have the
her.
Necklace?
I noticed, is it the one with the gelled back hair?
I think, yeah.
I noticed her at the end too. I think they're like a dykey Sam and Dean.
That's really good. That's just Sam and Dean regular.
That's the real Sam and Dean.
There are dykes everywhere for those with eyes to see them.
Like, but finding the Where's Waldo of the background dyke Sam and Dean is. Because I was like, who's that with the slick back? Oh my god!
That's a lesbian!
That's a masked lesbian Dean! Biblically accurate Dean Winchester!
That's the Dean that the CW doesn't want you to know about.
No, like, that is Apex Prime Dean.
Guys, gender isn't real, so they can be, any of these characters can be whatever you want them to be.
Trans mask Dean Winchester when...
He's trans mask, he's trans femme, he's also a lesbian and also a gay man, and he's bisexual. He's a lot like Link from Legend of Zelda in that way, where he's kind of like transgender or queer in like whatever way you want him to be. That's the beauty of Dean Winchester.
He's the entire LGBTQ.
Girl, that was so millennial.
I had to say it though.
That's another thing I love is Klaudia will go, "Oh my god, I had to say it about something she so did not have to." But it's like, I love it. I love that she does it because I'm like, you know what? Yes, girl, you did have to say that.
That's my emotional support millennial.
Exactly.
So,
oh my god, anyway.
So, they're in the lobby with Chuck, and Chuck is looking apologetic, and they're looking like they're gonna kill him, and then he's like, "Okay, gotta go into my panel," and they're like, and he's like, sorry about this, guys," and they go into the panel where Carver Edlund, which is his pseudonym, is the guest speaker, and this is where the guy from the beginning, who was the guy who was like, "Okay, show's starting," he's the director of this small con, and behind him there is a giant demon pentagram. It's like graphic design is my passion. First annual Supernatural convention behind him. It's like comical. It's actually quite funny. Like, they kind of ate that up. And the guy's standing up there and he's like, "Okay, here's the schedule for the day." And he says, "Here are some of the panels. Frightened Little Boy, The Secret Life of Dean."
It's too good. I'm like, and I've probably said that exact same thing, that exact same phrase.
Like, they ate that. And then the second one, which is the homoerotic subtext of Supernatural, to which this isn't the homophobic part, because they ate that one up.
No, and here's the other thing, because one of the panels is about, again, homoerotic subtext. I'm gonna say, these are books. And books tend to give a more, like, in-depth perspective of what a character is thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, obviously, like, with shows, I think shows leave a lot more to interpretation in terms of, like, how an actor is delivering a performance and like how an actor is like delivering their lines and like the character's sort of thought process.
Yeah.
A lot more of that is implied and you have to read into yourself. But with a book, obviously there's a lot of implied stuff and there's a lot that you can grasp from, interpreting. But I'm like, the fact that there's, interesting.
Chuck wrote that in.
Also, the fact that I'm like, homoerotic, in the books, Cass hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah,
and I know
so we
that
all
people were
know.
shipping Wincest way before. I know people were shipping Wincest way before Cass showed up, but I'm just like, Dean Winchester, there's something going on, and I'm grasping at straws because I know they're just poking fun, but you feel me nonetheless. I'm toxic. I'm a toxic fujoshi. Cancel me if you must.
That's so Becky. Well, actually, Becky is not a fujoshi, and that's the problem with her.
That's why, see, when there are fangirls who aren't fujoshis, it's a little scary to me. Yeah. Sorry.
They're like,
I'm sorry.
They're like, I need to fuck that man. I'm like, that man is gay.
No, exactly. And we're talking about Sam, who I do feel is, like, maybe bisexual. Yeah. I feel like Sam could be. The more I think about Sam, the more I'm like, he could be bisexual, but is just kind of, like, more secure in it. He just doesn't talk about it. He's like, whatever.
He's kind of like, I could be bisexual, but I have a job. I don't have time to worry about that.
I could be bisexual, but I'm also the vessel for Lucifer, so I don't have time to think about that. That was like when Jared Padalecki was like, when the show was ending, and he was like, if you picture Sam as non-binary, that's like awesome. And then it's like, and then he was like, and if you see Destiel as romantic, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, dude, that's like kind of amazing that you said that.
I'm kind of obsessed with that mindset. Like, trans people, okay. Gay people, fuck them.
No. Well, to be fair, he just said fuck Destiel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, number one Wincest.
We can't ship J2 on the pod.
No, I'm not shipping. I'm saying that Jared ships. Guys, it's over. I've lost the plot.
You called me a Wincest shipper, so I get to call you a J2.
You know what? And you know what? Maybe I am. I'm not, but it's okay.
Oh, God. We can't even get through the first half. Like, when I tell you this episode had me rolling, okay? So
it was also so funny because I feel like this episode, we're giving a lot of our own commentary. I feel like the first half of this episode is way more, like, insane than the last half.
Yeah, definitely. I would also say, like, so in the first half of this episode, you get a lot of Sam and Dean being like, oh my God, this is insane to hear about yourself. But as it goes on, there were a lot of times where I felt like yelling at the screen, like, hey guys, you know they think you're fictional, right? Which someone does tell them straight up. But at some point, I'm like, hey guys, this is actually not that abnormal behavior for someone who thinks that you are fictional. You are fictional characters. Yes, it's kind of freak shit for sure. But again, they don't know that you're real. So, like, calm down. This coming from the two guys who every time they pretend to be FBI agents, they pick a different name of a rock star they like. I know what you are. So, anyways, Chuck gets on stage, and I will say, what's his actor's name? He does a really good acting job here of being the
Rob Benedict.
Yeah, Rob Benedict. He does the best job of being the most uncomfortable because he basically has to introduce this convention, and now Sam and Dean are there, and he's like, oh, they're gonna fucking kill me. And he's like, hi, and then he just starts, like, downing water in front of everyone, and, like, all these fans are dressed up as Sam and Dean, and they're all looking at him with, like, rapt attention. And there's maybe, like, what, 50 people there? Like, there's not a lot of people in this small hotel ballroom, okay? And so they start doing a Q&A. Everybody has their hands up, and the first person is like, oh, where did you get the idea for Sam and Dean? And he's like, yeah, it just came to me, which is true, technically. And Sam and Dean in the back are like, we're gonna fucking kill you, man. Like, Dean makes this face like, oh my fucking God. And the guy who's dressed as the Hook Man, who ends up being German, or at least a caricature of German people. I don't know. It's a running gag in this episode. He gets up and he's like, okay, so I've noticed that the boys do some kind of stupid stuff. Like, why can't they do this or that? And one thing they mention is they're like, why can't you keep your weapons on a bungee cord so that it doesn't get knocked away? And he's like asking like very stupid, like, I kind of respected the writers for like criticizing your cinema sins kind of bitch. Like, they kind of got me there. Like, you know what? And during this conversation, Becky gets up and she's like, if you don't like the books, don't read them. And I was like, ooh, fandom
but
fight.
She calls him out by name. I think his name was Fritz. She's like, if you don't like the books, Fritz, then don't read them. I'm like, they are having crazy beef on their forum.
Oh, like, they know
Someone's
each
getting
other.
doxxed.
But also, that is the reality. I do think it also could be that his name isn't actually Fritz and she's just saying something derogatory towards Germans, which I think is something that the Supernatural writers would do, is like, I know, let's find a way to insult a group of people. I don't know. I'm like, it's a lot easier to insult Germans, but anyway.
They spin a wheel and they're like, this week it's gonna be Irish, gay, Asian, German, yes.
and then something happens in the next episode where you're like, whoa, involving Germans. So strap in, everybody.
Jesus fucking Christ! Oh my God. Okay, we can't
get to that part yet. So, this episode, it does give me a chuckle. So. Then this cosplayer, again, I'm calling him CinemaSins. He's like, why doesn't Sam realize that Ruby is evil? Like, it's so obvious to the reader. And I feel like this brings up Ollie's point of that, like, certain things are clearer when you're reading them in a written format than they are in a visual format. And I think also that comes from the fact that in universe, these are visions that are coming to him that he is then writing down. So he is getting whatever certain information, well, not technically, because he is God, so he's just saying they're visions he's getting from God, but he's just God who is writing them down. So at the end of the day, it's written that way. At the end of the day, it's written, whether it in a meta way or not. Woo, this episode is going to get confusing. So he's like, why? She's obviously manipulating him, and Sam... This is where Becky gets up and it's like, if you don't like it, like, don't read the books. And, like, Sam is visibly upset. And Chuck is like, ha ha ha, and asks for some more question. And then another person is like, hey, so, like, what happens next? And Chuck is like, well, I guess you preempted some big news, but we're going to start publishing again, thanks to a wealthy Scandinavian investor, which I thought was very funny. And everyone's, like, clapping, whatever. And Sam and Dean are like, we're gonna fucking kill you. So the panel ends, and Sam and Dean go up to Chuck. Chuck and Becky have gotten these drinks, which I think when Ollie comes to visit me, we should make these drinks. They are called the Yellow-Eyed Coolers.
Yeah, he walks over. He, like, comes from the bar, and they're these big, gay, like, not margaritas. What are they called? Because they're in those, like, big rounded, like,
they're in like
glasses.
In like a daiquiri glass, but it has like pineapple and stuff. Like,
yeah,
like they look kind of good. And
they did low key look good. I do want one.
I also have to say, I'd like to shout out to the con organizers in this episode, because they did a great job. Because this con includes like relevant panels. It's not too big, it's not too small. We'll get to the LARP session. They have themed drinks. I'm like, I don't think I've ever been to a convention that good, and I've been to ones big and small.
No, like, exactly. And it's like, I feel like this is one of those, like, just like based on the size of the fandom of like the Supernatural books in universe, this feels very much like it would be one of those, like, you watch a YouTube video retrospective on being like, this convention went down as one of the worst ones in history. Like, diving into the history of this convention.
Yeah, because, spoiler alert, someone dies at it. That's why Sam and Dean are here. But like, before someone died, really well organized. Really well done.
I was saying, like, it seems like it totally, just based on the size, it could have been one of those ones that was like, this small fandom tried to have a convention and ended up horrible. But, like, it's like, wow, this actually, like, it kind of beat that. They kind of like DashCon wishes.
No, that's what I'm saying. Cosplaying as Winchester at DashCon.
Okay, why are you saying that? Like, that's not something that someone definitely did.
Somebody definitely did. You know what? I have a mutual who worked at DashCon. I will ask her.
Are we all excited for DashCon 2?
Please. They've been saying DashCon 2 is happening for a while, but it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, but now it's actually happening.
Wait, it is?
Yeah. We'll talk about it off
What? Okay.
We'll talk about it later. It actually seems kind of slay, honestly.
Oh. So they walk up with these little drinks, and Sam and Dean are like, you need to stop.
Wait, no. They walk up he walks up to Becky and is like, here, I got you this drink at the bar. So what are you doing later? And then Sam and Dean walk up. He is hitting on a fan.
Yeah.
Chuck, you should not be hitting on your fans. That's fucked up.
And keeping in mind, this is God. Yes, obviously Becky is a little different because, like, she knows his secret and whatever. But yeah, Chuck is, I thought that was later in the episode. This is at this part. He bought her a drink. Like, he brings over 2 drinks and he's clearly hitting on her. And the funny part of this is that Sam and Dean walk up and her head just, like, snaps over to Sam. She's like, hi! I hate her too, but, like, nobody deserves that. And Sam and Dean are like, we are out here trying to stop the fucking apocalypse. And they're saying this loudly in the lobby of Supernatural cosplayers, which I think is funny. So they're like, we're out here trying to stop the apocalypse, and you're going to keep writing real prophecies into books? Are you fucking stupid? Are you an idiot? We're going to fucking kill you. And at one point they say, you know, who gave you the rights? And I was like, you know what? They were like, you do not have the rights to our story. And I was like, you know what? Get them an agent. Like, get them an agent. Get them an IP lawyer. Because, yeah.
But can you really have a lawyer when you're, like, enemies of the state and considered dead? What's, like, the legal practice? Because here's the problem. This could totally become, like, a true crime sort of situation.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, someone's making a podcast about a violent situation that happened to a real person, and they're like, oh my god, guys, if Supernatural for the season 16, another pitch I'm adding to my, like, list of season 16 pitches, so, like, is gonna be a podcast that's, like, basically like My Favorite Murder, but they're talking about, like, Sam and Dean Winchester, 2 brothers who went on a killing spree in, like, 2007, and then mysteriously disappeared and then died in an explosion. But, like, there have been reports of people seeing them after. So there's all these conspiracies about how they're still alive. Isn't that so scary?
No, because that would have eaten, if they wanted to do, like, an in-universe spin-off podcast of Supernatural, that would have eaten. That would have been
funny as fuck.
It would have been funny as hell. They should hire the 2 of us to do it. I think it would be funny.
I feel like we're kind of like the Supernatural version of My Favorite Murder. Like, that feels right. I feel like we're a bit less vultures about it, but, you know, because, you know, these aren't real people.
Which is funny, because that's what this episode is about. Multiple times Dean is like, don't you have any consideration for their feelings? And people will be like, okay, so they're fictional characters.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
No, but the meta-ness of this, like, it does keep coming up. I will also say that I never realized about it, but in universe, we always joke about how, like, oh, they're on the run from the FBI, and then they're dead, and then they're not dead, and then they're this, and they're that, and they're whatever. I bet the existence of these books actually help them. Inadvertently.
That's true, because, like, but here's the thing, their last names aren't in the book, allegedly, but if you Google Sam and Dean, the books might come up.
The books might come up, like, all the things in the book, like, if you were trying to research, the stuff in the book would come up. God had the books published, so once search engine optimization started to be a thing in the 2000s, to be able to let his little blorbos keep doing their thing. Because, spoiler alert, that is basically what he says. He's like, you guys are my favorite blorbos that I'm just fucking with. Which makes this episode even crazier. So, they're like, and Chuck is like, hey, listen, the world is ending, but I still have to make a living, which I think is actually kind of a killer line. I was like, kind of taking that energy into 2025. And he's like, you know, I what else am I supposed to do with my life? He's like, actually, he says to Becky, he's like, actually, can you give me a second? I need to, like, have a private conversation with them. And he's like, what else do I do with my life? Who else am I? Which, again, is hilarious, considering that he's God.
He is funny, because he's like, I don't have any, like, marketable skills. Like, I'm not even that good of a writer. These things just, like, appear in my head. And
I'm like, okay, but that's hilarious, considering the fact that, you know, Chuck, the person who doesn't exist, like, if this stuff appeared in your head, you would have to write it in a compelling way for it to, you know what? And here's the funny thing, the way that he explains how it came to him, it's very much giving how Stephenie Meyer talked about how she would always be like, it came to me in a dream.
Also, I do think it's funny as fuck if like the idea that this is God. If we do look at this like from a meta perspective of being like they knew he was God and he's been God the whole time. This is him being like, listen, I realized some of that shit I wrote kind of sucked ass. Sorry, guys.
It is funny also from the perspective of the writers, because has the showrunner switched at this point at season 5?
No, Sarah Gamble takes over in season 6, I believe.
Okay. I know there's some change in leadership, but I don't know. So while they're having this discussion, they hear a scream. And Sam and Dean go into like, okay, let's hurry. They rush upstairs. And upstairs it looks kind of like, again, this is like a historical building. It looks very quaint. They've probably used this set before for a haunted house. And Chuck is like, wait. Chuck does the Willy Wonka. No, wait, stop, don't. And they go up, and there's this woman who is clearly acting as the maid, and she's like, I saw a ghost. And then they rush up to her to like ask her questions, and then a bunch of people who are cosplaying as Sam and Dean also do the same thing. And they're like, can you get out of our way? And they find out that this is the start of the scheduled LARP. Yes, they are LARPing a case. And here's the fun thing is that I forgot that the conceit of this episode is a LARP, because there is a whole episode later in the series about LARPing, where Dean pretends like this is a new concept to him. But the first time they LARP in this show is in this episode where they LARP as themselves. The fact that LARPing comes up multiple times in this goddamn show.
You know what? I think it's as God intended.
Yeah.
Who's to question his vision? Capital H.
Oh God. So, and I would also like to say the way they've set up this LARP, like it's giving like high quality advanced escape room. We've got actors, we've got props, we got multiple floors. Like they rented out the whole hotel. They're using the hotel's, you will find out, real lore. Like they are put in a lot of they hired people to act like who aren't even fans. Like it's really well done. Okay,
who's bankrolling this convention? Because like
the Scandinavian person.
No, I don't think so. I thought that this was like that was just for the publishing. I think this is like a fan-run convention. They're like that guy from the beginning has put his own money into this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Sam and Dean are disgusted. They're like, ugh. And then like the actress who's playing the maid, like, is like, oh look, there's a directive from Dad's journal. And it's like a very like simple thing. And they're both like, oh God. And they're like, yes, and whoever solves the case first wins $50, a gift card from Sizzler. Sam and Dean are like, huh? And they're like, I need a drink. And the funny thing is that another piece here is that the whole time they are like, they're saying their typical lines, and then you'll like hear a cosplayer say something similar. Like there's and this is where two cosplayers who eventually become very important to the plot. I forget their names. Will come up later. Barnes and Damien.
Yeah, and we don't learn their names till the end.
We don't.
That's kind of like an important thing is they're so deep into the cosplay of Sam and Dean that it's like that you don't even know their names.
Yeah, we don't even know their names, and we hear them. They're the ones who are like really, really into it, and they're like making up lines on the side, whatever. And Sam and Dean hear that shit, but then they turn around and say the same kind of thing. So like the show is poking fun at itself in a very fun way in these moments. So then we have one of the fake Sams. He asked a question in the panel. He's kind of investigating by himself, and it starts with a shot of a paper recreation of the EMF meter. And it looks exactly like it. It's just like drawn on in crayon. And it's really cute. And it pans up in the same way. And he's going around, whatever. And there's this actress who shows up. And she's pretending to be mean old Letitia Gore. And he's like, oh, like, damn. Like, she looks really good. And he uses like a toy gun. And then she doesn't actually, vanish because she's a human person. And he gets mad about it. And she's like, well, what do you expect me to do? Like, and he's wandering around. He's like, oh, this is so cool. This is so whatever. And then he sees this young boy who looks kind of dirty, and he's in this like Victorian dress, and he looks very pale. We can tell as Supernatural viewers, he's an actual ghost. And he's like, oh, Miss Gore won't let me have any fun. And the guy's like, oh, damn, like his makeup is really good, whatever. And then the boy actually does disappear. He's like, huh, what? And he's running, and he's like, and at one point he stops, and he's like, okay, this is really cool. And then he runs into a room, and then suddenly he gets like lifted up, I think by his feet. He gets like lifted up, and he's flung against the wall in a room, and he's being basically thrown around by a ghost. And the real ghost of Letitia Gore is yelling naughty and all kinds of stuff at him. And he survives this. He hits the ground, she lets go of him, and he runs downstairs, and he's now actually scared. And he's talking to his cosplay partner, and he's like, I'm gonna leave, this place is really haunted. And nobody believes him, obviously. And Sam and Dean overhear this, and they're like, they go into investigation mode. But also, fake Sam and Dean also hear, and they're like following along. And this part is wild, because they go into the lobby, and this is where the guy who's running the convention is basically playing the character of being the person who runs the hotel. And he's basically over and over to different groups of cosplayers. He's like, this is the history of this hotel, and it used to be an orphanage, and this woman, she went crazy and she killed all these kids, and she killed these 4 boys, and da-da-da. And he's telling the story, whatever. He's very, very, playing his part a la haunted house, dinner theater, etc. And I think Dean makes a dinner theater joke at one point, and he's like, oh, like, all right, I'm tired of this or just like community theater thing. And they're all standing there. And I do believe this is also the shot where you have like 14 Sam and Dean cosplayers all show their fake badge at once. And every time this guy addresses them, he uses different rock stars' names. Like, they think of really everything. It's really good. I was laughing. And in a good way. And so Sam and Dean are sitting there, and they're like, okay. And they're like, okay, we're going to have to actually ask the real hotel manager, like, what is up with this building? Because it is an old building. And they go up to the hotel manager, and the hotel manager's like, girl, like, I'm not in on the LARP. Like, please leave me alone. And, I get you're serious.
He's like, guys, unfortunately, unlike you guys, I do have a job, so I can't be busy doing this.
And in response to that, Sam and Dean decide to just start plunking down money to bribe this guy to talk. And he's like, I guess I'll yes and. And here's my thing. I'm like, how do they know he's not just lying to get them to shut up because he's trying to get them to act? But sure. So he's like, yes, a piece of that story is true. There was a woman, she lived here. She killed these 4 boys, etc. And the hotel manager is like, this is actually the 100th anniversary of that murder. And Dean is like, oh, so they chose this date, like, for the ambiance. And he's like, yeah, they did. So you can see where this is going. The other piece also is watching this in retrospect is wild, because they do this again. Like, when they have their 200th episode that's the High School Musical about fan fiction, that is Supernatural fan fiction, they do the same exact thing, where they're like, what if there were fans of Supernatural, but there was a real haunting? Like, they do it so many times on the show.
And this one is the far superior version.
Oh, absolutely. Although, I would say that episode is pretty good.
That episode, but that's one of those ones where I'm like, okay, you're making fun of the fans.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, a little misogyny seeped in there, but we'll get to that eventually. So
that's just the Supernatural way, baby.
Yeah. So Sam and Dean, they go up to the attic, and they still are unaware that the most in character Sam and Dean, who are named Barnes and Damien, are behind them and heard the whole conversation. And they see a young boy's ghost. I believe it's a different young boy. And they see and they see like, and they're like, wow, like your makeup is really good, whatever. And so they play along and they're like, where's the body buried? And they have this whole bit in this part where the guy who plays Dean is more into it than the guy who plays Sam. And the guy who plays Sam is like, oh, this is so cool, whatever. And the guy who plays Dean is like, character voice. If like, I'm gonna look stupid if you're not also in it. And they're like, he's like, okay. So they like, every time they lower their voices, I'm like, oh, these actors had a great time. They had a great time. And they're like, where'd they put the body? And they're using all the stupid jargon and all this kind of stuff. And the ghost points at this painting at the end of the hallway. And they're like, oh wow, like this is really cool, whatever. And then the ghost disappears and they're like, huh. And before the ghost disappears, the ghost is like, please help us. Miss Gore won't let us have any fun. Same thing that the other kid said. They go and they look at the picture and they take it down and they see that there's a bloody handprint on the wall and on the back of the painting. And when they take off the paper backing of the painting, there's this map in the frame. And they're like, damn, this is a pretty good LARP. Like, okay, escape room, like murder mystery. Like, this is pretty cool. Meanwhile, Sam and Dean are still in the attic with a real EMF, which is funny because we saw the fake one before. And they see a ghost of another little boy who's in the corner. And he's like holding his hands over his head. And he says, you know, does my mommy love me? And Sam's like, oh, yeah, like, of course, I'm sure she does. And then the ghost is like, my mommy loves me this much. And he shows that he's been scalped. Like, half of the skin on his scalp is gone and he's bleeding. And then he disappears. And they're like, huh? And so they go downstairs and Sam has entered research mode. He called somebody at the County Historical Society. And while he's doing this, okay, I need to say something about Becky. So Becky is like making weird faces at him during this entire thing while Chuck looks sad that he's being ignored. And here's the thing about Supernatural. One thing they're always going to do is demonize a woman's desire. So in this case, they make her into a creepy predator who is like an over-obsessed fan. But anytime any woman has desire, whether it be, you know, a lover interest of Sam who is gonna die no matter what, or she's a lesbian, or she's just a fan, like, they are gonna make her life hell. Granted, they make everybody's life hell, but, like, women are, if they express any sort of desire, it is a joke on this show.
So true. Except the only time it's not is when it's like, well, this is like a real woman. Like, this is like a respectable woman. Like, I feel like it's like they don't do that with characters like Lisa, who you're supposed to be like, oh, she's like a respectable, like, cool, normal woman who has a kid in a house.
Yeah.
Or like even with like Eileen later on, it's not quite as like that, but it's like only the women they see as like real serious women.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like whenever there's a joke at a woman's expense, it's never like funny. It's always like, isn't it funny how she is a sexual creature, much like Dean and Sam are at times?
Yeah. And we will get into that when we talk about Joe in the second episode as well. But I just want to point that out with Becky is like, do I hate her? Yes, but I also hate her existence for other reasons. So Becky is being a freak during this conversation. And basically Sam learns that there were 4 victims. One of them was this woman, Letitia Gore's son. So she killed her son and these 3 other boys. And then according to the police, he was scalped. So clearly that was her son that they saw. And Dean is like, I'm going to deep fry this bitch extra crispy. Like, he goes all the way. He's like, damn, you killed your son, whatever. And I was like, okay, sir, mommy issues. All right. And they're like, okay, we got to find her remains or whatever. Just then, who overhears them? Barnes and Damien. And they also overhear Barnes and Damien, who are talking about the map that they found. And Sam and Dean go up to them and are like, where did you find that? And Sam touches the map and is like, wait, this is real. Where did you find this? And they're like, they say, what do they say? They're like, this is a game. We're not here to make friends. Like, we're here to win that Sizzler gift card. And I respect that. I have to respect that hustle.
So true.
And And they're like, so basically they get into this big argument, and they're like, yeah, you can't be working with that, whatever. That ends in basically Sam realizing that they have to yes and with these people to get anywhere. So they're like, well, why don't we work together? And whatever. And so the cosplayers are like, okay, fine. We get the gift card, and we get to be Sam and Dean. And Sam and Dean are like, oh. And then we cut to they're walking to the graveyard, and the cosplayers turn to them and they're like, come on, Rufus and Bobby, keep up. They named Sam and Dean Rufus and Bobby.
It's so, I know they're mad as hell. I know, because I'm also like, which one was Rufus? I think Dean was Rufus. I'm like, that's so. Also, I also have to say that in that first scene, like the crowd scene, like when they're at the thing, someone in the front row is dressed as Bobby, and I think it's a woman who has on like a fake beard, and it's so fucking funny. I'm but like, also, best episode. Where's this episode's Emmy?
No, literally.
But like, it was funny. It was like the two of them were talking about something, and these two cosplayers are like, Bobby, Rufus, keep up.
And Dean and Sam are like, I need to kill myself. And they're going to the graveyard, and this is a thing that the wiki brought up that I didn't clock. They start role-playing an actual scene from the episode Asylum, apparently.
No, they totally do. They're like, this is right after they visited Dr. Ellicott about the thing. I totally clocked that when that happened. I forgot to bring it up because I remember, because there's I've already doxed myself, but in the state in which I live, there is a city called Ellicott City, and people you can tell that people aren't from around here when they call it Ellicott City. And I remember watching that episode of Supernatural, and they were like, Dr. Ellicott, and I kept having to, like, while we were recording the episode about it, I kept having to check myself because by instinct, I'm like, no, that's not how you pronounce it, but like it is in this context. Sorry, long story short, I always remember that name because I always have that thought. So I did hear that in this episode and was like, oh my God, this is just like Asylum.
And this starts to piss Dean off. And like, okay, here's the thing. I understand. If I was Dean, this would be harrowing for me personally. But also you have to remember that they think these are fictional books. Like, you need to be use your brain a little bit. But Dean doesn't use his brain. And he's like, okay, why would you want to be these characters? And they're like, well, because we're fans, like you guys. And he's like, Dean says something so funny here. He says, I don't know if I have the right quote written down, but he's like, I'm not a fan of this story. You know, I think this story is a bunch of crap. He said it would send most people howling to a nut house. The things that happen to these characters, whatever. Dean basically says what we say in every episode, which is, I'm not a fan of Supernatural. I just know everything about it, and it fucking sucks.
Literally.
They're literally us in that moment, where those guys are like, so why are you here? And he's like, well, like, because it's my life. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about Supernatural.
Yeah, and he walks away. He like storms off, and Sam's like, he's just really passionate about the books.
Yeah, well, because he says he's like, you know, don't you have any like consideration for their feelings? And they're like, well, no, because these are like fictional characters. And that's when he walks away. And then Sam's like, he's just like really passionate. And I was like, here's the thing though, I've seen people have fights like that on Tumblr.com.
No, literally, that was what I was thinking this whole time. I was like, they are not that weirded out, because they're like, they've definitely, if they're this involved in online fandom, they've definitely met someone like this. Like, it's very much giving the like the Raymond from Animal Crossing, like, he's not in a comfortable environment. I would like for you to have him in boxes, and I'm gonna come pick him up. Like,
that was actually Raymond posting.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh God. Or the people being like, you hurt Kylo Ren's feelings.
Stop. I want Dean Winchester in boxes, and I'm coming to get him.
I pick him up all the time. So Dean is clearly perturbed by this. And, they're like, they say, why would Sam and Dean care? They're fictional characters. And he's like, well, they do care a lot, which I think is an objectively insane thing to say when people think that Sam and Dean are fake. Like, objectively crazy. But again, so they go into the graveyard, and the cosplayers, they're doing the whole, like, we're looking for the bones, whatever. And Sam and Dean, like, they find the gravestone and they start digging. And the cosplayers are like, hey girl, like, are you actually gonna dig up a grave? Like, we're like role playing here, whatever. And Sam and Dean are like, yeah, like, we're serious about this, are you?
They're like, you want to win the gift card, don't you?
And they're like, what? Also, to defend Dean for 1 second, if I found out that people were writing RPF of me and my brother, I would kill myself. That being said, there's a difference between RPF and they do think you are a fictional character. So, yeah, like, so they're like, they start digging up.
Sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles, Dean.
Yeah, I love how these cosplayers see these two guys who are like, yeah, we're committing to the bit so aggressively that we're gonna commit a felony, and they're like, yeah, I could see that happening.
Sometimes fandom brain just does that to you.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There are stories of fans committing felonies, so this doesn't shock me at all.
Mm-hmm.
They start digging up this woman, Letitia, who is the mother who killed the kids, her grave, and her ghost shows up and attacks Sam, and Dean's, like, trying to burn the bones, whatever. And also, once they uncovered the bones, like, the cosplayers stayed, which I don't know why they stayed, but shout out to them for not calling the cops a cab. But they stayed, and they see the bones, and they're like, oh, like, those are, like, real bones. Those are not plastic. Like, you guys were not fucking around. And they were like, yeah, we were not fucking around. And that's when the ghost shows up, and Dean finally burns the bones, and the ghost disappears, and they're like, oh my god, like, this stuff is real. And Dean is like, was that real enough for you? And I'm like, I don't know if that's helping your case, Dean, but okay. So they're like, oh, we did it. Spoiler alert, they didn't do it. So the two cosplayers, Barnes and Damien, they're at the bar. They are looking fucking traumatized, and Sam and Dean are like, yeah, this shit sucks. Here, drinks on us. Have a good night. And suddenly, all the exits to the room where the bar is are sealed. And Letitia's son, who is the one whose head got scalped, shows up, and he's like, well, it's not my mommy who killed me. What exactly does he say?
He's like, my mommy didn't do this to me.
Yeah, he says that outright. Yeah, he's like, well, my mommy didn't do this to me, whatever. And he disappears. And they're like, oh. So they piece together that these boys hurt this little boy, and then she killed the other 3 boys in retaliation. Which, is it ever clarified? Like, she didn't kill, like, what happened to the little boy? Why?
I don't know. I think maybe it's implied that it's like these 3 other little boys killed her son, and then she killed them.
I guess, yeah.
But I'm also still like, listen, girl, I think killing people is bad for the most part.
Yeah.
But, like, even if these kids are terrible, like, I know motherly rage, but you probably shouldn't have just killed these other 3 kids.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's a TV show. It's not, contrary to popular belief, it's not real.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter that much. It's just funny.
So we cut to a hallway upstairs in the hotel, and we see the Hookman cosplayer, who is German, and this is a moment in 2000s internet lingo where we hear him out loud say, sigh. And you're like, okay. And
because he was saying, like, oh, this place, all this stupid LARP stuff, this is so boring. Sigh.
And you're like, oh, okay. And suddenly, the ghosts of the 3 other little boys that we have seen before all show up. And I do love how the caption on that picture is, the evil spirit children are now off leash. They show up.
I always say that. That's like my number one quoted phrase. I always say that.
They show up and they're like, Miss Gore is gone now. We can have all the fun that we want. And the guy is like, oh, like creepy children. This is so overdone and supernatural, blah, blah, blah. And they pull out knives, which I'm like, these must be very powerful ghosts if they can manifest and kill people. But like, okay. And then we hear a scream, and Sam and Dean go upstairs, and they find that the guy who was playing the hook band got scalped and then killed by these kids, which, again, these have to be some powerful ass fucking ghosts. We cut back to, I guess they're back in another panel. It doesn't really say which one. And Chuck is, like, starting to talk, and Sam runs on stage and, like, and he's really tall, so this looks really funny. He runs on stage, interrupts Chuck, and whispers in his ear that somebody's been killed and that these ghosts are... There's a horse loose in the hospital. These ghosts are loose. And basically that they need to keep everybody in the convention hall room, you know, to keep them safe, because they're gonna, like, ring it with salt and everything. And he's like, you know, and then Dean gets all the hotel guests and staff in there. I don't know how he got them in there. He's like, oh, you don't want to miss this. And they're all like, I don't know. And they try to lock them in there. And then Sam says to Chuck, he's like, just keep him in there, no matter how hard. And Chuck has basically almost finished his panel that he's doing, or his Q&A. And he's like, okay, I guess. Like, and they run out. And they're like, okay, so Letitia, the ghost of the mother, clearly was the only thing keeping these 3 homicidal ghosts from killing people in this hotel this entire time. And so then they go up to the actress who was playing Letitia before, who was like, you know, I can't, you know, disappear at will, whatever. And they're like, they cook up this stupid ass fucking plan that, sorry, it's dumb.
They are fucking stupid. If I really genuinely was like, they're not actually trying to do this right.
Yeah. I will say also, once Chuck starts, like, ad-libbing to people, he's like, so about the continuation of Supernatural, how do you feel about angels? They're not as cool as you might think, whatever. And you're like, oh, this is them riffing on the fact that adding angels was controversial in the fandom, but okay. So they go up to this woman and they're like, okay, hear me out. We need you to act as Letitia. And I'm like, why would the ghosts recognize her as this person? Because she's a good enough actress? And she's like, actually, I'm not an actress. I'm just like a waiter at a Hooters nearby. A waiter at a Hooters. And I was like, there were not any struggling actors you could hire, but okay. And I don't know why they think this is going to work. And then the 2 cosplayers who were spooked before show up, Barnes and Damien. And they say that they want to help. And Sam and Dean are like, you know, why would you want to help? Like, weren't you scared shitless? And Dean says, like, hey, like, Sam, can you, like, give her the puppy dog eyes and, like, you know, and convince her? And he turns to them and he's like, you know, why would you want to do this? And they go, you know, oh no, like, we are scared shitless. It's just that there's people who are in trouble and who might die, and we can help. And, you know, it's what Sam and Dean would do. And you can tell, like, Dean is, like, confused at first, but he is, like, genuinely touched by this. He's like, oh. I think this is, like, Dean's first foray into, like, how stories can impact people. Which is also interesting from, like, a meta point of view of, like, I'm sure at this point in the series, the writers have now found out that, like, this story means something to real life people. And it's, like, actually kind of a touching moment. It did remind me of there's this line in the anime Frieren, where anytime, I promise, Ollie, I won't talk about it too much, but this anime Frieren is very good. You should watch it. It's a piece of media you should watch instead of Supernatural. It's basically about the life of this very long-lived elf after her party and her adventure. They've won their adventure and they start dying of old age. And one of them is a human named Himmel, who he's this hero that everybody knows of. So everywhere she goes in her adventure, she hears about Himmel. And when people do nice things, they say, like, well, it's what Himmel the hero would do. And it, like, gives her a nice, warm feeling inside, reminding her of her friend. And it's really sad. And every episode makes me cry and whatever. It's fine. But as soon as he said this, I was like, it's what Himmel the hero would do. Anyway. Dean's like, okay, I'll let you guys help. And we head to, Dean goes with the actress to distract the ghosts. And then Sam is like, okay, I'm gonna try and get these two cosplayers out so that they can go dig up the bones and burn them of all the kids. And he's like, I'm gonna try and get them out, even though the doors are sealed. And the actress at first, she manages to like get them to come out. At first, she's like really scared, and she's like, come out, and she's like, you guys are in trouble, whatever. And I'm like, again, I don't see why they would do it. And she's nervous, and Dean reverts to being misogynistic and calls her sweetheart. I'm like, stop. But suddenly her phone starts ringing, and at this point, we're at the point in the 2000s where I think it's like a BlackBerry or something. And it's like, it's supposed to be, I don't know, and it's like a song. She's like a full-on fucking ringtone that starts, and she like pulls out of her pocket and shuts it off, and then the ghosts are like, wait a minute. And Dean's like, oh fuck, I guess I gotta run in. And while this is happening, they are able to distract them enough to at least get the two cosplayers out. Sam can't get out. And Dean comes in and he's like, okay, run, like, get behind me. And he does what he normally does in a fight, which is get his ass beat by these children, which is abso-fucking-lutely hilarious.
It's so funny. He's like on his back, and there's a kid like smacking the shit out of him, and these kids are like 9 and 10. Like, these aren't like teenagers. These are little children.
I know this was funny to film. I know it was hilarious. So Sam arrives to help, but again, he's not much help either. And Barnes and Damien are like, oh my god, like, the books make digging graves seem easy, but this is not easy. And they're like, like, trying to dig it out, whatever. And you have this moment where I think it's Barnes is like, or Damien is like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And Barnes is like, yes, you can. You can. And you know, they're like, Dean could do it. Like, and I'm like, okay, but I do the same thing. I'm like, okay. That's what Satoru Gojo would do. You can do this.
I literally knew you were gonna say that. I was like, if Satoru Gojo can do it, so can I, because he's a fucking bitch, and I'm cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sam and Dean are getting their ass beat by these kids continuously, and they're gonna try and scalp them before they kill them. And, oh, there's also a piece in here I'd like to once again point out: racism and Supernatural. So a key point that we find out of why they were scalping the kid was because, as a play on the fact that what's occurring in this episode is that LARPing,
right,
they figure out later, they're like, oh, so the kids were playing, aka LARPing, as cowboys and Indians. And then they actually scalped a kid. So there's that.
Thank you, Eric Kripke, who wrote this episode.
Oh. Wow, that's fucking insane. Yeah, just didn't. I wanted to make sure we pointed that out, because fuck you, Supernatural. Wasn't needed, but sure. Because yeah, you're like, it's a kind of a very specific thing to scalp somebody. Don't worry, everyone, it was racism. I mean, I guess it's like accurate for the time that these little creepy ass white boys would be doing that, but that's insane. And they were like, yeah, they're LARPing, ha ha ha. And you're like, oh.
I think it'd be funny if that wasn't what they were doing, and Sam says that, and one of them is like, actually, Sam, that's not very woke of you to say. In fact, I think you need to re-examine your own cultural biases.
I feel like that does happen in an episode at one point, where he kind of gets dragged by like a demon or something. I think that does happen.
I mean, that literally happens to another guy in the next episode of being like, you're not woke enough, and demons are woke, but we'll get there.
That's true. So, Barnes and Damien, they're able to set the bones on fire. They make a little joke at one point where they're like, where they're like struggling to do the lighter or whatever, and they're like, man, like, Sam and Dean make this look so easy. And I'm like, look so easy? There are a lot of visual references, obviously, because this is a visual medium, but I'm like, but they're reading them as books. So how is that conveyed in the book? But okay, fine. They set it on fire. The spirits are gone. They're safe. And you see, like, the police, they're taking out the body of the Hookman guy. This is where there's a very interesting scene. A scene that stays with me for a long time.
And I think Klaudia would argue that this means something. This means something, and we'll figure out. We'll talk about it.
So Barnes and Damien, they're talking to Dean. He's thanking them, and he's like, "Oh, I don't actually know your real names." And they're like, "Our names are Barnes and Damien." They're like, "Actually, we don't know your real name." And he's like, "I'm Dean. I'm the real Dean." And they're like, "No, like, you're joshing with us." And Dean seems a little disappointed. I think he kind of liked the yes and. I honestly think this plays into the later LARP episode where he's so happy to do it because it's not about himself and he realizes this is something fun for him. Like, this man would have been amazing as the man who thought he was straight, the one man who thought he was straight in a high school theater company. My God, he would have had a grand old time. But unfortunately, he had to hunt with his father, so he's a little disappointed. And he's like, okay, well, thank you guys. And as he's walking away, Damien is like, he says, "You're wrong, And he's like, "No offense, but I'm not sure you get what the story of the Supernatural books is about." And Dean is like, okay, like, sure. And Damien is like, well, in real life, Barnes, he sells stereo equipment, and I fix copiers. And he says, our lives suck, but to be Sam and Dean, to wake up every morning saving the world, to have a brother who would die for you, who wouldn't want that? And Dean's like, huh, like, I didn't really, like, think of that way. And so this is a nice moment. And then we turn to something odd.
I think it's still nice, and I think that I think I'm choosing not to listen to writer's intent on this.
Dean is like, you know what? Like, you make a point. And he's like, you guys don't make a bad team. Like, how did you get to know each other? And they're like, oh, well, we met online in the Supernatural chat room, which is probably what everybody did. And Dean's like, oh, must be nice to get out of your parents' basement and make some friends, which I think is kind of a mean thing to say after you had a really nice interaction, but sure. And Damien's like, we're more than friends. We're partners. And then they hold hands, and one of them puts his head on the other's shoulder. That's right. The cosplayers who are cosplaying Sam and Dean are like, we're a gay couple who met in a Supernatural forum. And
I'm sure that's never happened to anyone in real life.
Yeah, here's the thing, that's happened. And Dean is just like, ow. And then he walks. Sorry. He says, howdy, partners, and then walks away. And here's the problem: as somebody with a non-binary partner who has to call their partner a partner, that would be my reaction.
Howdy, partners was funny as fuck. But I'm also imagine being Damien and Barnes and being like, you're telling this guy, and then. Because here's the problem.
It's 2006, right? Or 2009. 2009.
So Dean is probably feeling weird because he's like, these two, first of all, much to unpack. First of all, that he's like, I just saw a gay couple who are cool hunters. Oh my God, I'm feeling things. But textually, he's like, oh God, there's this gay couple dressed up as me and my brother. That's fucking crazy. But then he's like, and I think Dean's cool with the gays, right? But I do think it's funny that because he's weirded out because it's him and his brother. Yeah. They're sitting there like, oh God, is he homophobic? And then he's like, oh fuck, they think I'm homophobic. Howdy, partner.
He's like I will give them this. He had progression in this episode. He went from not realizing that these people don't realize that they're real people to, okay, let me go with the bit a little bit. But it is funny that it's like, and this is 2009, so this is supposed to be like a fucking gotcha, like, haha, they're gay. And that's where I can't decide if this is supposed to be like, because most of the episode is laughing with the fandom. This thing feels a little, could go either way, but that is the true Supernatural way, so I can't hate on it.
but Barnes and Damien are slay.
They slay.
Like, I do think, listen, I will say, I probably wouldn't cosplay as siblings with my partner, but, I don't think it's a sin. I don't think there's anything really I don't really think it's that big a deal. So I think if anything, Dean Winchester just would have loved being involved in fandom drama.
No, like, he literally missed his fucking calling. Like he would have killed as, like, the admin on a fucking wiki or some shit. Actually, that would be Sam. Sam would be really into being an admin on a wiki. I know he's on Wikipedia, because we know, canonical Star Wars fan Sam Winchester, I know he was an admin on Wikipedia when he was like 15 and bored. Well, Wikipedia probably didn't even exist at that point. Anyway, so we get howdy partners, which is hilarious. Here's the funny thing. That interaction between a couple is paralleled. And I just want to point out, because you know how we talk about how there's a lot of gay coding for Dean, even outside of Castiel? This is another moment of this, because this moment is Dean uncomfortably with a gay couple, right? He's separate from Sam, who is uncomfortably listening to Becky quote unquote breaking up with him, where she's like, we had undeniable chemistry, but like a monkey on the sun, it was too hot to live. And he's like trying not to laugh as she's like, yeah, I've moved on with Chuck. Because, oh wow, I skipped like a whole scene.
There's a scene, it's fine. I mean,
it's okay. Here, just
it's not important, but basically there's a scene where like people are fed up with Chuck doing the Q&A when he's trying to keep them in there, because he's just kind of riffing and he sounds like an idiot. So people try to leave and he's like, oh my god, no, you can't leave. And someone opens the door and there's a little ghost boy and he hits them with the iron mic stand.
Yeah.
And Becky's like, oh my god, wait, Chuck is sexy.
She's like, wait, Chuck is kind of hot though. And so then, yeah, and then it cuts to she's breaking up with Sam and Sam is trying not to laugh. And you're like, and he's like, oh my god, finally. And the funny part about this that I find hilarious is that the more uncomfortable couple is not the gay couple cosplaying as siblings. It is Becky with God. That is way more uncomfortable. And the fact that at any given moment, they are always going to put Sam in a really uncomfortable situation involving a woman and Dean in a gay joke. They're always going to do that, no matter what.
It's so true. It's really true.
Like, and it's very specific. They could have they sometimes put Sam in a gay joke, but, like, not that often. Not as much as Dean.
When Sam's involved in a gay joke, it's because Dean is making a gay joke about him.
Yeah.
It's never, like, the universe playing a gay joke on Sam.
Yeah, it's, like, kind of insane. So, also in this conversation is a line that I do find very funny, where Sam is like, oh, you know, Chuck, it's okay if you start publishing again. And Chuck is like, really? And he's like, no, we have guns and we will find you. And I thought that was so funny. Also, in retrospect, because at the end of the series, spoiler alert, they do get a gun and kill God. I was like, you know what? This episode kind of cooks in retrospect.
It's so meta.
Because also, that ends up being the crux of the series, is that they are tired with being toyed with by God and God using them as his characters. So what do? They go kill God. They literally, what he says right here, what he's joking about, is literally what happens. Like, it's kind of crazy.
The problem is I still can't decide if I think Chuck being God was the dumbest decision they've ever made or fucking inspired, and I think it's maybe a little both.
Well, that's the Supernatural way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything has to be 80% really stupid, but also 20% kind of cooking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
amen, brother.
It's like, oh, these crumbs kind of tasty, though.
Yeah, that's actually so real.
This is what we should call the episode. These crumbs are kind of tasty, though.
These crumbs are kind of tasty, though. I always say that.
No, it was like, you know what the experience of Supernatural is like? So when I was at home and my siblings were visiting, one of my siblings, my brother, and his wife and his kids, and one of his kids is 10. And she really likes really spicy food. She also really likes garlic. So we got that garlic tomb sauce that you can now buy in bulk from Costco. And my nephews and my brother and my sister-in-law, they were eating it like fucking butter, okay? Which I do as well. I spread that shit on whatever. At one point, we had tortilla chips, and my niece took a spoon, dipped it in the dip, got a giant dollop of the garlic dip, and then when the bowl of tortilla chips was done and there was just tortilla crumbs at the bottom, she then just took the spoon and mixed it in the tortilla chip at the bottom of the bowl so that she had a bite of tortilla crumb infused garlic sauce and then just kept eating it like that. And I was like, that is what the experience of Supernatural is like.
That's fucking crazy. That's insane.
Like,
that's demented.
I tasted it because, you know what? The mind of a 10-year-old girl is a fantastic place. And you know what? It kind of cooked. It was kind of good. But it was also very fucking weird, and that is the experience of watching Supernatural.
That's fair. It's honestly, yeah, I get it. I
get
what you're
garlic sauce with a spoon with little tortilla chips sprinkled in it.
I feel like every day we come up with a more apt metaphor for what this show is like, and every day we stray further from God's light.
Yeah, well, hey, that's what Supernatural's about, right? Straying
That's,
so far from God's light that you kill him.
you know what? That's literally true.
In a way. At least until the second to last episode, and then the last episode comes, and God, it's about a rusty nail, so...
Yeah, that's true.
So, here's a part that made me scream, because I forgot this was in this episode at all. Right at the end. So...
No, I literally died.
Like,
I jumped out of my seat. I totally forgot this was happening.
This was my Avengers. This was my, like, Marvel,
like everyone opening the portal is coming out to help fight Thanos. Like, that was how I felt when this happened.
Or this is like, you know, whoever will return, and I was like, like, after credits scene situation where and Chuck says, oh, I understand, like, there'll be no more books. Spoiler alert, there were more books. And Sam starts to walk away, and Becky's like, wait, hold on. So, you know, in chapter 33, Time Is on My Side, which is a name of an episode, you know, that British girl Bella, she stole the colt from you and said she gave it to Lilith, remember? And Sam's like, yeah, it, like, happened to me in real life, so yeah. And she's like, okay, well, you know that she lied, right? She never really gave it to Lilith. And Sam's like, what? And she's like, well, didn't you read the book? There was this one scene where Bella gives the colt to a demon named Crowley, Lilith's right-hand man.
Yes.
And then she says, I think her lover, too, which is crazy work, considering that Lilith, canonically, in Supernatural Universe, likes to inhabit the body of a child. We can't get into that.
Yeah, and Crowley's gay. So.
Yeah, Crowley's gay also, but...
I mean, no, I feel like he's bisexual, but
yeah.
I don't believe it. Call that biphobia, if you will, but...
Yeah, and Sam is like, Chuck, like, why didn't you tell us about this? And Chuck is like, I'm gonna be so honest, I am not as big of a fan as Becky. I write this just down and then I don't remember it. And, Sam is like, wait, Becky, like, you need to tell me everything. And we cut back to Dean is standing by the car. He's smiling after this conversation with these two gays. Suspicious. And Sam comes up behind him and is like, hey, like, are you okay? And Dean's like, you know what? I think I'm good. Which is actually kind of bittersweet when going into what happens in the next episode. And Sam's on the other side of the car and he's like, okay, so you're not gonna believe this, but like, I got a lead on the Colt. And Dean's like, huh? And he's like, long story, like, I'll tell you on the way. And Dean's like, oh, well, what are you waiting for? And then they get in the car and they drive away. And it's very cute. And you're like, aw.
Yeah.
Aw.
Mm-hmm. It was actually like a pretty nice episode. Like, I remember hating this episode, but I think it was just because I was like deeply, deeply embarrassed by like literally everything.
Yeah.
So it was like back in the day, I was like, oh my God, they're making fun of me personally. And I was like, oh, actually, like, no, they're not. But I think I was merging this in my head with another episode later that's way worse.
Yeah.
But this one's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And it leads us into the next episode,
before we go to the next episode, I had to bring up two things from the trivia section of this. One, while I don't believe this is correct, I do think it's funny. Chuck talks about falling in love and losing his virginity at 16 when he's trying to distract people, only for the girl to go and tell everyone it didn't count, possibly alluding to the reveal as God in the later seasons and the story of the Virgin Mary.
Right. So sometimes you guys just like make things up for fun.
Okay, but that one kind of cooks though. Like, also at the end of the episode after it cuts, it basically has these it basically has like bloopers of like what Chuck was saying and like Sam and Dean's reactions to it as they're standing in the room, and he's saying, and that's when he says like, oh, this is when I lost my virginity and I liked it because I like this show and whatever. And at one point he says, well, the way I look at it, it's not really jumping the shark if you don't come back down, which is a reference to the episode called Jump the Shark, but is also crazy in a meta reason because this show literally jumps the shark and he plays a prophet, or what we think is a prophet. In the end, he's God. But like, they accidentally prophesized in their own show, like.
But the thing is, I think, too, is that, like, it's not jumping the shark if you never come down, because I feel like the thing with Supernatural is that it jumps the shark and then continuously, like, we just have to keep one-upping ourselves.
Yeah. Well,
so,
and
like, there's
to be
something
fair,
there.
They were never up.
That's true.
They were never up. You know what I mean? Like, they were always pretty down. That being said, this is a good episode. Anyways, I just had to bring that up because I thought that was fucking hilarious. Anyways, the next episode is
we start. Oh my
holy
god!
So is this the mid-season finale?
It is the
mid-season finale. Or it's a two-part.
No, it's one part. It's a mid-season finale.
Because I thought it was leading into, but yeah, I guess it
is.
Nope.
Nope, it is the mid-season finale. Don't worry, I checked because it leaves us on a bit of a cliffhanger, guys. Spoilers. Okay. It has maybe one of my favorite opening scenes of any episode of Supernatural ever.
You've probably seen it in GIFs too. And as soon as I saw what the background setting was, I went, "Oh, it's this episode!"
Yeah. Oh, okay, guys. So this is season 5, episode 10, Abandon All Hope. This is the last episode of 2009, so that's exciting. Like I said, it is the mid-season finale. So we look down. It's a top-down shot, and it's of this freeway, and it's like a couple like intersecting freeways, like a junction of a freeway, and an older guy, he is like digging a hole in the ground, and we see him put a box that has like a couple things in it and cover it with dirt. And longtime viewers of Supernatural will know this is how you summon a crossroads demon to make a deal.
I do love the modern interpretation of a crossroads as being under a city free like a overpass. But like I was like, you know what, they kind of cooked there. I never thought about that, but yeah.
But this guy, he like stands back up and he looks around a little bit, and we hear a British male voice say, "Mr. Pendleton, I presume." And we turn around and it's fucking Crowley. Guys, Crowley is here. He is here, guys. Everyone get excited. And for those of you who don't know Crowley, you're about to learn. He's fucking crazy.
He's gay people's number 2 on this show. Like,
I agree. Yeah.
Like, unless you're like a specific Dean girl, like it's like Castiel, Crowley, everybody else.
Exactly. So this guy turns around and he looks at Crowley and he's like, "Oh." And Crowley's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And he's like, the last person I was talking with about this deal was a very beautiful young woman." And Crowley's like, "Yeah, that is true, but you're kind of a big fish, so I wanted to come and do this myself." So you can assume Crowley's like a high-ranking member in demon world, and we'll learn more about that. But this guy is like, yeah, that's great, but like I have to, she said I have to seal the deal with a kiss. And Crowley's like, that is correct. And he's like, oh, I don't know. There's some things I just won't do. And Crowley says, quote, "Your choice. You can cling to 6 decades of deep-seated homophobia or give it up and get a complete bailout for your bank's ridiculous incompetence," because it is the financial crisis. So this guy is in charge of a bank that is failing, and he's making assumingly a very large deal to save his bank and save his reputation. And the only thing he has to do is make out with Crowley.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that's crazy about this. On this podcast, we have talked before about how we're like, so did John Winchester have to kiss the yellow-eyed demon, right?
Yes!
Here's the other thing. Crowley could have chosen a vessel who was a woman for this, but he chose a male vessel to fuck with this guy. And I respect that wholeheartedly. Here's the other thing is, as you may know about the history of the 2008 financial crisis, they got those bailouts from the government anyway. He didn't have to sell the rest of his life in hell to do this. And yet he did. And that's hilarious to me. Everything about this is so funny. Like, this, and it keeps being funny. Like, it's
so funny.
It's so, as a character introduction, it's a fucking masterclass.
And then, okay, but guys, listen. The next thing that happens is he's like, "Well, you don't have to do this. Like, that's on you." And he goes, No. I don't know. And Crowley goes, "Okay, well, I'm going to leave then. I'm going to give you a couple seconds. 3, 2. And the guy's like, okay, fine. And Crowley is like, "All right, awesome." Puts his cups the back of this guy's head and pulls him into a kiss. Like, it's like a real, like they're macking on each other.
You know,
Crowley, Claudia texted me, and she was like, I know Crowley's using tongue. He so totally was.
He absolutely was. Like, he went full, he said, if you're gonna kiss a man, you better kiss a man right. And you know what? I have to respect that.
This leads to maybe one of the best shots in the entire show, is in the foreground, we see Crowley and this guy making out. And then the camera looks over Crowley's shoulder and zooms into like a support beam. And from behind the support beam leans out Cass, who's on the phone. And he's like, I got him.
And it's the most comical zoom. It is like,
it's
imagine,
so funny.
Imagine like telenovela Bollywood movie level zoom where Crowley is making out with this guy and then it's like shoom into Castiel and he's like, I got him. And he's on the phone with Dean. Again, we have to talk about gay coding with Dean and Castiel, where there are two men kissing and then zoom in on Castiel going, we got him.
Yeah. Cass is okay. So Cass is like, we got him. And Dean's like, all right, Huggy Bear, tell me what's going on. Which I was like, what the fuck? Turns out that is a reference to a character on a show who is like a no-nonsense, like, correspondent. So I was like, okay, that was not just him randomly calling him Huggy Bear. But anyway, so
we can dream.
Mm-hmm. So Cass is watching this deal, and he's like, I got him. They're sealing the deal right now. And Dean's like, what do you mean sealing the deal? And he's like, they're anyway, so Cass is basically like, okay, I can follow him from here, but I know where he's staying. He's at this compound, but I can't go in because there's Enochian warding. Also, like, wards on it.
The Enochian warding looks funny as hell. It's in like light blue neon spray paint on this house. Like, it looks dumb as shit.
So he's like, okay, I can't get in, so like you guys are gonna have to do it. And Dean's like, all right, thanks for the intel, sweet cheeks. We'll take care of getting in. You've done everything you can. And then we cut back to Crowley and this guy, and it's just so funny because then they stop kissing and the guy pulls away and Crowley goes, okay, enjoy your unfathomable riches.
Here's a question I have to pose to the class. Do you think that Crowley would like Luigi Mangione?
Probably not, because I think he likes billionaires.
I think he likes exploiting billionaires, though. I think he thinks that's fun.
Yeah, and I think he thinks killing them's a little simple.
True, but like it's simple for him. I don't know. I'd be interested. Like,
I feel like this is not a conversation I'm equipped to have right now. Let me think.
Let me research. Yeah. Well,
anyway, Luigi didn't do it because I was with him when that happened.
Yeah,
so.
And as a Marylander, you know.
I do. I was literally with him when that happened. We're at this compound, and we see a woman who's clad in like a black tiny little dress standing outside of this grand mansion. And she's like buzzing in on the intercom and she's like, hi, like, can someone please come help me? My car broke down. Hello. And she turns around and we realize it's Joe Harvale, everyone's favorite character, played by a former IDF member. So
this is where we're gonna have to have nuance, where we go, let me defend her character, but God, I hate that actress and I hate that woman. Much how we have to do with every other actor in Supernatural. Yeah. But I hate her for more legitimate reasons.
So, but she's like, oh, please, can I come in? And these two, like guys come in, like security henchmen type guys. They come out and they're like, hey, girl, like, come on in. And she's like, oh, you know what? I'm actually like, you know what? Like, they're acting creepy. And she's like, I'm just going to wait in the car. And one of them is like, you're not going anywhere. And his eyes turn black. He's a demon. We realize this is Crowley's compound. And he's like, get inside. And he goes to grab her. And she grabs his arm and like snaps it and like flips him around. And they start fighting. And then Sam shows up and stabs the shit out of this guy with like the demon knife. And then Dean shows up and is like, all right, let's move. Which, again, harkens the question, why did Joe need to be here to do a sexy little thing for this?
It's because like, Dean is obsessed with heist movies and they had to have a whole heist plan. But that's really, fair. They could have just gone by in an ice cream truck that was blasting The Exorcism and then been fine.
They really also, you know what they could have just done? just walked in, just
yeah,
stormed it. Anyway,
like call in January 6th the way they could have stormed it. You know what I mean? Like,
so then we cut to a really like powerful, interesting scene where we're talking about how much we stand Crowley.
Yeah,
you must keep in mind he's an evil demon. So remember that he's inside.
but this is also, given what he says and what he does in later seasons, this shit doesn't make any sense. And this scene to me feels like very tacky storytelling of just being like, hey everyone, he's bad, but like not even in a camp way. It's just bad. You're like,
it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
And it's like never referenced ever again. And you're just like, what?
Here's the problem. It is one of those things that's like low-key funny for a second. And I think that that's what they were going for. Like, I don't think we're supposed to think deeply into it other than the fact that he's bad. So basically what happens is we cut to Crowley. He's like inside his little compound / mansion. He's like pouring himself a drink. He's chilling. The TV is on. And what do we see on the TV? Like Nazi reels, like propaganda, like film, black and white film reels of like their weapons and like the soldiers marching. And it's like, what the fuck?
Like he watches this to relax and you're like, what? Anyway, that's not my Crowley.
And it's also not relevant, but it's just like, okay. And he's chilling there and suddenly the electricity goes out and he's like, what the fish? And he looks up and sees Sam and Dean. And he's like, oh, the Hardy Boys finally found me. Took you long enough. And he's like, you guys...
I was freaking out at that line also because one thing about Crowley is that in every episode he has a new nickname for the Winchesters, and that's the first one he has for them, and I think it's very funny.
Yeah. So he's like walking over to them, and they have their guns pointed at him, and he's like, oh, what's this? And he goes... And now this was confounding to me because he goes underneath of this rug he has on the ground and he flips it up and there's a devil's trap painted on the bottom of the rug. And he's like, don't you guys know how expensive this rug is? And I was like, how the fuck did they get into his house to do that?
Yeah, I need the backstory.
When did that happen?
I need the backstory on that. Also, speaking of the existence of the Supernatural books in universe, did any of the demons read the Supernatural books to learn their tricks? Is that how he knows all their tricks? Because I think that would be funny.
That would be funny as hell. So, but they realize like, oh fuck, we've been made. And Crowley's like, all right, anyway. And two more demons show up and like grab Sam and Dean from behind. And Crowley pulls out the Colt and he's like, oh, were you looking for this? And he aims it at Dean and he's like, okay guys, like, let's not fuck around anymore. And right at the last second, he, like, moves a little bit and shoots the two demons that are holding Sam and Dean. And then he puts it down and he goes, okay, we need to talk. And both of them are weirded the fuck out.
See, that's a far cuntier introduction than whatever the fuck was going on with him watching that shit. Like, you know what?
So strange. But, so Crowley's like, okay, girls, come here. And he is just so gay. But he's like, okay, get over here. So why the fuck do you guys think that I even still like have this? Because what would have been like the smart thing would, like, if I really didn't want anyone to find the cult, I would have just buried it in bumfuck nowhere and no one, including you guys, would have known. But I've been leaving subtle hints. I've been planting rumors. I've been telling secrets. I've been passing things along so that you guys could find it. So you guys could find me. Because I am going to give you this gun and you are going to empty it into Lucifer's fucking face. And Sam's like, I don't know. That feels a little, I don't feel like you actually, like, you're a demon. Why would you want us to, like, kill the devil? And he's like, okay, well, considering that you guys are, I've labeled you guys already as functioning morons, I understand why you wouldn't get it. And Dean's like, well, you're a functioning morons. You're morons. And Crowley's like, right, okay.
So this is what makes Crowley so great. It's because he's always just like, actually, you guys are fucking idiots. Like, and he just like, he calls it as he sees it. I think he's like, he is the proverbial straight man in the room, not straight heterosexual, but like straight man in the scene, kind of. Even
He's
though
aware
like,
of the
silly.
narrative.
Yeah, he's aware of the narrative in a very hilarious way that I think
Mm-hmm.
is really funny. I also just want to say, when they're like, well, why would you want to kill the devil? It's very clear that neither of them have worked a regular job because, you know, everyone has worked a job where they're like, I think I need to kill my boss. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's
So
clear that he spends his life doing credit card fraud instead of working a real job like a real American Dean Winchester.
mm-hmm.
Anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Um, so Crowley's like, okay, well, for those uninformed minds, if you'll recall, Lucifer is in fact an angel, and his whole thing was that he thinks humans suck and like thinks that humans are like less than nothing. So how do you think he thinks about demons? Like, we're totally cannon fodder to him. So when
Also,
he gets rid of humans, we're going to be next on the chopping block. So it's about survival at this point.
which makes a lot of sense also because within the supernatural universe, demons are the souls of humans who have been tortured to the like humans who went to hell either because they did something bad or because they made a demon deal and who they were already bad people and then they were tortured to the point of their souls becoming demons. So
Mm-hmm.
like they're not only people but they're like the worst people around.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, this is about like survival, and I'm trying right now to give you guys like a pitch because what I'm best at is sales. So I'm doing a sale right now. So here, he hands the Colt to Sam and he's like,
Well,
"Can you please take
no,
this?"
he says that he's in sales kind of disparagingly, where he's like, I just want to go back to a world where everybody can do whatever they want because right now I'm basically like working a job and I basically work in fucking sales and this is stupid.
Yeah, that's true. But he's also saying like, yeah, he's like, I just come on. So he gives the Colt to Sam and Sam is like, I don't know if I want to take that. And Crowley's like, are you fucking serious? And Sam's like, okay, okay, fine. So he takes it and he's like, okay, do you happen to know like where the devil is so we can avoid some of this fuck ass runaround? And Crowley's like, yeah, girl, he's in this place called Carthage in Missouri. And Sam and Dean kind of look at each other, and then Dean kind of nods at him, and Sam pulls up the Colt and points it at Crowley's head and like shoots him, but like nothing happens. And Crowley's like, "Yeah, so you're probably gonna need to get some more ammunition." And Dean's like, "Right, um, so like you're seriously gonna give us the Colt? Like, there's no reason that you would just give us the Colt, because what if we lose? What if we miss?" And he's like, okay, well, as soon as you guys leave here, I'm gonna take a vacation to somewhere where no one will be able to find me. Um, and you know what? Honestly, he's gonna wipe us all out anyway, so it won't really matter. Also, how about you don't miss? Okay, morons. He's like,
I'm
he's like,
obsessed with his mind. Like,
no, he's literally like, fuck you guys. Please, dear God, just be normal.
also, I do think only the devil willingly goes to Missouri because as soon as he said Missouri, I was like, oh my fucking god. Also, I wanna pause as we are talking about Lucifer as an angel. We're gonna be talking about Lucifer. We're gonna talk about angels. We're gonna be talking about all that today, quite a lot. Um, I need to once again recommend the now book series because there are 2 books and there's a third coming soon. Angels Before Man and the sequel Angels and Man. I don't know what the third is going to be called. I think the author also released a little novella in the middle that is like a gay retelling of the first one is a gay retelling of Satan's Fall and the second one is of the Watcher's Flood. I have to
A series you've talked about many times on this
Yes,
show.
yes,
So
but
yeah,
it's like
do check it out. I'm
if you
planning
want
it's on my TBR this year.
the audiobooks are also really good for them. But yeah, they're really good and anytime I'm like, what about good Bible fan fiction? This is one of them. This is one of them. Get on it. Anyways,
Anyway, so we're back. We cut to Bobby's home, and this scene's funny. Cass and Ellen Hervale, they're both chilling in Bobby's kitchen, and Ellen does like 5 shots in a row, and
I think
Cass,
it's vodka.
I think it has to be, right? It might be like whiskey.
Also, Santana is playing. There's a lot going on in this scene.
And then Cass goes shot for shot and drinks like 5 shots like in rapid succession and goes, I think I'm starting to feel something, which is like a reference kind of to that scene in Lord of the Rings where Gimli and Legolas are doing that, and I just thought that was funny.
Another autistic gay icon, Legolas.
Literally
having
so
Castiel reference Legolas, like, again, this is bait for gay people. Like,
so Sam and Dean, I don't remember. Okay, yeah. So Sam and Dean are talking in the living room, and Sam is like, this like has to be a trap, right? And Dean's like, oh, well, finally your trust issues with demons are kicking in. Wow, I guess better late than never, right? And
he kind of got his ass there, like.
No, literally. And Sam kind of laughs. He's like, all right, fair enough. And Dean's like, okay, I don't know if this is a trap because, like, I did some research and, like, there's all these omens, like, from Revelations that are happening in this place, like, in Carthage. And he lists, like, a couple things, like, from Revelations that are happening in this place in Missouri. And he's like, and 6 people have gone missing from there, like, in just the last week alone. So, like, even if this is a trap, he probably is there, right? So Sam's like, yeah, like, I guess you're right. And Dean's like, but you can't come. Like, this could go really bad. And, you know, I don't want to risk, like, you getting hurt and getting caught up in, like, all this stuff. Like, if it's just me and Lucifer, like, then we've lost, and I die. That's just, like, a game piece. Like, I'm dead, whatever. Then you can still fight. And if he ends up with both of us there and ends up taking you as his vessel that we have brought to him, like, we're kind of fucked. And Sam's like, okay, have we not learned by now that if we're going to do this, we're going to do it together? And Dean's like, okay, but I think this is a stupid idea. And Sam's like, yeah, when have we ever done things that aren't stupid ideas? And then Dean looks up, and Jo is watching Ellen and Cass, and she's kind of leaning over, and you can see, like, the contours of her body.
Here's the crazy thing, though. She has no ass to admire, so it's an ass shot of nothing. It's like, at least, like, have somebody, like, she's go girl, give us nothing. Like,
and then, but Dean, like, looks over at her, and Sam goes, quote, boy, talk about stupid ideas. And I'm like, oh, please, God, I forgot about this. So Dean stands up and walks over, and he's like, he leans across the bar and or like the counter and is talking to Jo, and he's like, you know, this could be like, you know, we're fighting Lucifer tomorrow. Like, this could be it. And she turns around and she goes, are you giving me your last night on Earth speech? And he's like, well, I mean, maybe. And he goes, like, angles to kiss her, and she starts kind of leaning in. And he's like, if this was a last night on Earth speech, would it work? And she leans up and she goes, no, because if it is our last night on Earth, I'm gonna spend it with some dignity. And Dean's like, well, shit, fair enough.
She cooked him so bad. And here's the thing, it's, yeah, because she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna fuck a guy who is definitely trying to not feel gay in this moment. Because I also have to remind the class, when was the last time he had a last night on Earth conversation with someone? Castiel. Who is sitting there basically meeting the equivalent of his living mother.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy work. She literally was like, yeah, so you're gay, so no.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
So then Bobby's like, okay, girls, get in here. We're taking a group photo. And there's some grumbles from the audience. Like, I think Dean is like, okay, like, why do we have to do this? And Bobby's like, well, I'm gonna need something to remember your sorry asses by. Um, and Cass is like, yeah, like tomorrow we are literally hunting Lucifer. This is probably our last night on Earth. And they
Which is
take
crazy that they had Castiel reinforce that and then immediately cut to Dean's face. I just have to bring that up. And Cass gets to be in the family picture.
Yeah. So we get this picture of Cass, Sam, Dean, Ellen, Joe, and Bobby. And I feel like if you've been online, you probably have seen this picture. It's kind of like the picture. But it's funny because it's not funny, but like Bobby is gonna stay behind and provide like ground support because he cannot go because he is confined to a wheelchair and they don't know what the fuck is going to be going on. Um but I feel like Bobby, if he really like, I just feel like he needs to get like some spikes put on his wheelchair.
No, literally. Also, like, watching this scene right after, I literally was like, Alexa, play DTMF by Bad Bunny. Like, literally, that
you can't say that because that's like, now that's activated someone's Alexa.
Shit, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, if you didn't know, if you're not on the Latino internet, Bad Bunny just released a new album, and he has this one picture that's become this meme. But he has this song called "Debí tirar más fotos," which is basically supposed to be like, I should have taken more pictures of my family, as things have been destroyed in Puerto Rico and stuff. And so people have been doing it, of all nationalities. People have been doing it where they take photos of their dog or their grandparents or whatever, and they're like doing little collages of it to the song. And I was like, it makes me cry every single time. But yeah, I literally when this came on, I was like, Alexa.
You need to stop. I love the sentiment. You have to stop saying
I say it because
the smart home device.
I have the other girl whose name I can't say, so I say Alexa all the time because I think it's funny. But yeah, do you think okay, who in that room do you think put on Santana? Because it definitely wasn't Dean. I think it was Bobby, and I think Bobby listens to Bad Bunny also.
Oh, see, I was gonna say it's probably Ellen.
You know what? Yeah. I do think that Bobby is more cultured, though.
I do tend to agree.
You know,
I mean, canonical... he's a polyglot. I mean, not that you have to be a polyglot to listen to Santana, but we already know he has more culture.
Canonical Japanese speaker, Bobby.
So true.
But yeah, Bobby.
Weeaboo, Bobby.
Bobby is a weeaboo, and he listens to Bad Bunny. I know this in my heart.
I know that Bobby was at the Gojo Shrine. Okay. Anyway. So the girls drive into town, into Missouri, into Carthage. And they're all kind of lamenting, like, there's no cell phone service. We can't get in touch with Bobby. All this. Sam and Dean get out of the car because they're like, okay.
Wait. Before they get out of the car, I just want to point out, there was a really cool shot where I went, you know what? They kind of cooked here, of the car. And then behind it is this giant, and I mean giant, American flag poster that says anti-God is anti-American. And then there's a sign for a porn store right next to it. It's like,
oh my God, yeah.
And it's those two things with the car in it. And I was like, there it is, Americana. This is the peak of Supernatural as Americana. I was like, they cooked with some of the shots in this episode. I was like, they ate that up, I fear. It was very on purpose.
Yeah. But they're noticing, like, there's nobody around. And they're like, that's weird. So Sam and Dean are like, we're gonna go see if we can find any, like, law enforcement, try to figure out what the hell's going on. You guys look for the townspeople. So they all kind of get out of the cars, go their separate ways. Cass and Ellen and Joe kind of head around this corner, and Cass is like, oh, this town is not empty. And we see from Ellen and Joe's point of view, there's no one there. But from Cass's point of view, there's a lot of people wearing almost like funeral-esque attire, all just standing there completely silent. Like, it has to be like upwards of like 50 people, right?
Yeah, and they're all standing there like spaced out moving a little bit. Some people are on top of buildings, some people are in the street, some people are in windows.
Yeah, and Cass is like, there are reapers like everywhere. And Ellen and Joe are like, what? And he's like, yeah, the only times that I've like known this many reapers together is when there is some sort of time of like mass death or like terrible catastrophe. And then he lists off the Chicago fire, the San Francisco earthquake, and Pompeii.
Uh,
Which is crazy.
Okay.
A crazy. Okay. Um. But so he's like, okay, I'm gonna go try to figure out why the fuck these guys are here. He then like goes after this one Reaper that's like moving and leaves Ellen and Joe behind. So Ellen and Joe go off to like look. Meanwhile, Cass, fucking damsel in distress he is, gets captured. And I believe the next scene is Cass like opens his eyes and he is in a ring of like holy fire, which if you'll remember is the only thing that can keep angels in. And Lucifer's there and he is in his vessel Nick, and he has these like this like scarring and like open wounds on his face, like clearly something's wrong. And Cass opens his eyes and he's like, oh my god, Lucifer, what the fuck's up with your vessel? Looks like shit.
Also, Lucifer is like, hey, brother. And
no, he's literally like, hey, Castiel, right? That's your name? And he's like, yeah, sister, it's me. And he's like
they definitely have the vibe of two siblings who didn't grow up together. As someone who has that as a personal experience, they have that exact vibe. I mean, I know my brother far better, but like, I thought that shit was hilarious.
Yeah, he's like, you're Castiel, right? And he's like, okay, well, kill yourself. No, but he's like, so your vessel looks like shit. And he's like, yeah, this one's wearing a little thin. This body is not my like true vessel, so it's kind of wearing down. And Cass is like, well, quote, you are not taking Sam Winchester. I won't let you. And Lucifer is like, you know, your loyalty is like really touching. But like, I don't know why you're fighting against me. Like, both of us have gotten turned on by heaven because both of us have rebelled. Like, why are we not on the same side? You know, like, if they kill me, you're next. And Cass is like, well, I would rather die than help you do this. And he goes, right, well, you will. So then, I think it's also in this scene where Lucifer is like, so did you, like, where are they? And Cass is like, I came here alone. And he's like, well, you came here in a car, so how did you find that experience? And he's like, well, extremely repressive, but yep, I came here by myself in a car. And Lucifer's like, right, okay, so that's a fucking lie, but all right.
it was quite good, actually.
It's really funny. So Sam and Dean and Joe and Ellen meet back up, and Sam and Dean are like, okay, we did not find any law enforcement. Like, there's literally no one in this town. And Ellen and Joe are like, yeah, like, there's no one. And Dean's like, well, where's Cass? And I think Ellen is like, well, he found a bunch of Reapers and he went to go figure out what was up with them and we haven't seen him since. And Dean's like, well, fuck, we've been in this town for like 20 minutes and we've already lost our angel? Shit. Like, we're guys, we gotta get better than this.
Put an air tag on that motherfucker.
That's like, what I'm literally.
If this was happening in the 2020s instead of 2008, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Sorry, I just thought about Cass with like a life alert necklace.
They put that bitch on Life 360.
Shut up. So suddenly there's a female voice and she's like, hey guys, and they turn around and it's Meg. And if you'll remember, Meg is back. She has a new vessel and she's working for Lucifer. And she's like, hey guys, what are you doing here? And they're like, oh, bitch, you're not going to be able to stop us. Like, what are you going to do against one of you against four of us? And she goes, well, I'm not alone. And despite them being invisible, we see a splash in the water next to her. It's raining, or it was raining, so there's like puddles. And we see one of the puddles splash and we hear a growl. And she goes, Dean, I brought your favorite. You guys really shouldn't have come. And she has hellhounds with her. And she's like, well, my father would like to see you, so either come with me and make it easy, or we can go the hard way and it'll be really, really bad for you guys. So they're like, well, obviously we're not doing that. And Dean
also,
pulls out...
please correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first time that any of the demons have referred to him as their father? Because
no, definitely not.
I felt like that was out of place. Like,
it did feel weird in this scene, but I think they have referred to him as their father before.
Okay, because I was like, I know they've said like, oh, he's our creator, he's our whatever, but I was like, I don't remember. Anyways,
yeah, I mean, I feel like the dialogue of this scene did feel a little bit weird, but it got across what it meant to get across. But it was like, it kind of felt like this scene was clearly written to be like plot as opposed to like characters, but it's whatever. So they're kind of looking back and forth. Dean pulls out the Colt and shoots the space where one of the hellhounds would have been, and we see a splash of blood.
He also says, when have you ever known us to do things like the easy way? And you're like, you know what? He's not wrong.
Literally. So he's like, all right, fuck it, we ball. And they all start running away. And Meg is like laughing, like stereotypical evil laugh. And then as they're running, Dean gets like tackled by a hellhound, but Joe turns around and starts shooting. And Dean's like, oh my God, like Dean's like getting up and he's like, you need to keep going, like don't stop. And she's like shooting this hellhound. I think they're invisible. So what I think happens, and what it says on the wiki, is that she does kill the hellhound.
She kills one because you see like a black splatter.
Okay, that's okay, yeah. And then like as that is happening, another one jumps on her and knocks her down to her back, and we see like her entire chest and side get like totally fucked by claw marks.
This is where I need to point something out that bothers me about this show. Is number one, no hair tie for fighting demons. None. And also, have you ever seen a bitch in the South, for example, who goes actual hunting? Like, they're in fucking Kevlar vests. They are suited up from a military depot, whatever. Meanwhile, these chuckle fucks on this TV show, I'm like, you knew you were gonna go fucking fight demons who have knives and this and that and whatever, probably have access to hellhounds, and you're wearing, like, what, a regular shirt? Like, you live in America where you can buy a machine gun, and you were wearing not even a little bit of protection at all. So sorry, but I think you people are fucking stupid. Like, you're going to fight the devil, and you went, all right, kids, let's hop in the car. Like, anyways.
So, Joe is fucked up. Dean grabs her and, like, picks her up, and the squad runs into this hardware store, and they, like, barricade the doors, and they're in there. And Sam and Dean, like, chain the door shut and put salt down on all of the entrances, and Joe is like bleeding out, and Ellen has her like sitting in a corner and is trying to like help her, and Dean is fucking with this like radio that they brought, and he's trying to get in touch with Bobby, and he's like, it's hard because there's no connection, like everything's all fucked up in this town, but he's able to get in touch, and he's like, Bobby, Joe's really hurt, like things are fucked. And also, there's, like, a shit ton of Reapers, and we don't know where Cass is. And Bobby's like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. And I don't know how he figured this out, but he's like, I think I know that Lucifer is going to try to unleash death. And Dean's like, okay, but, like, there's death everywhere. We face so much death. He's like, no, like, death, like the horseman death. Like, the angel of death, as in death, capital D. And the Reapers are probably just, like, waiting for him to show up. I've been doing some research about Carthage, the town they're in. And he's like, basically, this ritual says that, like, the death can only be brought back at places where like terrible things have happened, and it must happen at midnight. And Dean's like, okay, so like what happened here? And he's like, there was this battle called the Battle of Hellhole in the Civil War, and there was this guy who had a farm named William Jasper, and like that was where it took place. So I'm willing to bet that's your ritual site.
Jasper, the Civil War,
just like
battle
Twilight.
scars.
That was my first thought. That's so sad. So that's what's going on. That's the tea. That's a drama. We cut back to where Cass is, and he's still in this circle of holy fire, and Meg rolls in, and she talks to Lucifer, and she's like, hey girl, I've got those motherfuckers cornered. What do you want me to do with them? And he's like, just leave them alone. And she's like, well, wait. I don't know if we should. And he's like, shh, girl, mama, queen don't cry. Everything happens for a reason. And he's like, okay, Cass, you sure you don't want to come with me? Don't want to change your mind? You can come with. And Cass is like, so no, I don't want to do that. Then we're back at the hardware store. Sam and Dean are trying to figure out, like, okay, we have to get to this farm by midnight and use the Colt, but we also have to do it after we get Joe and Ellen out of here so we can save Joe. And Joe's like, she is in the other room, but she's like, okay, I hear what you guys are saying. Can we be realistic? Because I can't move my legs and I can't be moved. My guts are being held in by an ace bandage. I'm not going anywhere. Like, we're fucked. And Ellen's like, Joe, don't say that. And she's like, no. I can't fight. But what I can do is stay here. We have all the items that we need. Like, we have nails, we have chemicals and stuff because we're in a hardware store. We can make a bomb, and I'll just sit here and hold, like, the trigger, and we can let the hellhounds in, and then I'll just explode them, give you guys more time. And Ellen's like, that's fucking crazy. We're not going to do that. And she's like, okay, do we have another plan? Like, the hellhounds, like, they're on our trails. Like, they're not just going to let us go. We have to destroy them. And
I did think it was funny when she said we also got nails, and I was like, Dean, get away!
No, literally.
Not the nails!
And Ellen is like, no, like, this is crazy. And Joe is like, Mom, this is one of your last times to treat me like a grown-up, so I suggest you do it. Like, this literally is the last time. And Ellen is, like, crying at this point. And she's, like, kind of looks at all of them, and she nods. And I think they all kind of realize, like, yeah, this has to happen.
I feel like there could have been another solution other than her blowing herself up, but here we are.
Yeah. So Sam and Dean have this moment where they, like, we see them, like, prep this bomb, and Sam says bye to Joe, and Dean hands her this detonator, this little hand detonator, and he puts it in her hand, and he grabs her hand, and he gives her this really, like, sweet kiss on the forehead, and then he just plants one on her. Like, just kisses her on the lips. Which is, like, whatever.
This is, like, their last-ditch effort at, remember, Dean is straight, and you're like, can we not, like...
You know that Joe was like, thank God I'm gonna die right now, because honestly, like, that was the gayest kiss I've ever had, and I don't think that I know how to dissect that, but okay.
Yeah. Also, I'd love to watch the mommy issues version of Supernatural that's about Ellen and Joe.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, they do all this. And then they step away, and Ellen sits down next to Joe, and Joe is like, oh my God, like, Mom, you need to get out of here. Like, you're not staying. And Ellen's like, well, somebody has to open the door, and you can't. And I'm not going to leave you here alone. And Sam and Dean are like, no, girl, like, you need to leave. And Ellen's like, no, you leave. And as they're, like, leaving, Ellen goes, kick it in the ass. And I read an interesting thing is, like, Kim Manners was one of the producers of this show who passed. He passed while it was in production. And apparently one of his, like, catchphrases was kick it in the ass. So this is, like, a sweet little homage to him.
Aww.
So the boys leave the building. Ellen gets up. She's like cleared the chains and kicks the salt away and comes back and sits with Joe. And she realizes that Joe is not moving and she's gone. And she starts crying and she's like, oh my God, like, it's okay, baby girl. Like, it's going to be fine. The hellhounds come in. She holds Joe's hand and lets off the detonator. And the building explodes. But as it does, she says, you can go straight back to hell, you ugly bitch.
She ate that, I fear.
Mm-hmm. And then the boys, they turn around and look, and like this place is on fucking fire. Like, they made an insane bomb. Like, it's like burning to the ground.
Yeah, it also makes me sad that they were supposed to be in the finale, and then because of COVID, like they were supposed to show up in the little roadhouse in heaven and whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh. But also, fuck her, the actress.
But yeah, like, Alona Tall unemployed, yippee, but like, that is a shame because the thing too that I think is important to talk about is that fandom has always been misogynistic, and I know that it's like Claudia and I were talking about this before, but it's like Eric Kripke had said that he really liked working with Alona Tall and really was interested in the character of Joe and was basically like pitched her like as like female Dean, but because fans not only hated the idea of Dean being with anyone, but basically just hated any strong woman in general, hated on Joe so much that they like killed her off. Which I think is a pussy move, but like that's like one of the reasons why. And I think it's also like Eric Kripke probably was like, I'm leaving the show. I don't want anyone else fucking with my girls, you know?
Yeah. Dean says the line, he says, see you on the other side, probably sooner rather than later. And she's like, well, make it later. And spoiler alert, boys, it took 10 more seasons, but he got there.
Hey, I mean, in terms of Hunter years, that's kind of a long time.
That's true. I also thought it was stupid that they had to, like, they brought them back after a while just to kill them off. I know that there was storyline planned for them in season 3 that never panned out because of the writer's strike. But it did feel weird to be like, oh my God, they're back and they're taking a family photo and they're dead. Like,
yeah,
and the whole, like, oh, this romance that'll never be thing. I'm like, but there was nothing there in the first place. Like, okay.
I almost feel like the fact that they tried to make it like a because I don't feel like there was ever really that much of a romance between Dean and Joe. Like, there were kind of allusions to it, but never anything concrete.
Yeah.
So I almost felt like it kind of cheapened their connection.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's what happened. So we cut. Sam and Dean they have found their way through this town. They're at this farm and they're like looking through like the brush, and Sam's like, oh, I guess I see where the townsfolk have gone. And the camera turns and we see that there are a bunch of townspeople and they're all standing completely still. Some of them are like shoveling and they're like, okay. Sam and Dean are like, all right, we're gonna go. And Sam's like, are there any last words? And Dean's like, you know what? I'm all right. I don't think so. I think I'm good. So Sam's like, all right, let's do it, girl. He goes out into this clearing and he pulls out his shotgun and he goes up to Lucifer and he's like, oh, you wanted to see me? And Lucifer's like, girl, you don't need that gun here. Like, that is not gonna hurt me. You're an idiot. And then Dean rolls up behind Lucifer and he's like, because Lucifer's like, yeah, Sam, I won't hurt you. And Dean rolls up and he's like, well, yeah, well, I'd hurt you. So suck it. And he pulls out the Colt and shoots Lucifer in the head, who he like tumbles back. And they're like, oh my God, like, we did it. Lo and behold, Lucifer rolls over and he's like, ow! He literally says that like that. And Sam and Dean are like, oh, we are fucked. And he gets up and he like smacks the Colt away and grabs it. And he's like, where did you get that? And Dean goes to answer. And then he uses like psychic angel powers to push him up against a tree. And Dean's kind of like, he kind of gets knocked out, but he's kind of in this state of like being a little conscious, but not really. And he's like, Sam, it's okay. You don't feel bad. There are literally 5 things in all of creation that can't kill, and I just happen to be one of them. And like we see him heal from it. And Lucifer turns around and he starts shoveling again. And Sam like runs over to Dean, checks he's still alive. And Lucifer turns around and he's like, Sam, it would be crazy for me to hope that you would just say yes right now, right? And Sam's like, absolutely. Are you stupid? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. And Lucifer's like, well, it'll happen. Maybe in 6 months. Maybe in Detroit. Because if you'll remember in the Croatoan future end episode, Dean and Sam have their showdown in Detroit where Sam is possessed. But he's like, okay, you know what? I understand you're angry. Let's use that. Like, yes, use your rage. It'll be helpful for me later. And Sam's like, okay. What did you do to the town? And he's like, okay, well, so here's the tea. For this ritual, all of the men I have possessed by demons, and the rest of the town people are in this hole that I'm digging. It's really, I wouldn't have wanted to do it, but it was like women and children first, because I needed the men to help me dig. But it is what it is. Come on, you understand. And Sam's like, why the fuck would I understand? And then Lucifer's like, well, I mean, listen, I think we're a lot alike. Like, Sam, I have this older brother that I idolize, and I wanted his help. I begged him to stand with me and to listen to me, and then he turned on me, and he called my brother Michael, he called me a freak and a monster, and put me down and forced me into hell because I had a mind of my own. Sound familiar? And Sam is like a little freaked out, and I'm like, Sam, come on, get a grip. But he's like, all right, you know what? I got a ritual to do. It's almost midnight. So if you could like fuck off, that would be great. And Dean kind of comes to in this moment, and Lucifer starts saying these words, not in English, not in Latin, in some other language. I may be Enochian, who's to say? And then he says something that's like, I give my body to this ritual or whatever, and all the demons repeat it, and then slowly, one at a time, they all start dying. And Sam and Dean are like freaked out, and Lucifer looks over and he goes, what? They're just demons. Which is crazy. Because
it proves Crowley right.
It does prove Crowley right, because Crowley is what? That bitch. We turn back around. Speaking of someone who's a little bit of a loyalist, Cass is like trying to use his psychic powers to like unscrew a bolt that is attached to a pipe that is over where he is currently trapped in holy fire, assuming he's trying to like get that open so water can come like let him out and put the fire out, which again, it's an oil fire, so okay, sure. But Meg is also in the room. She's kind of babysitting him, and she's like, it's gonna be so funny. We're gonna get to go back to heaven, Clarence. Like, I'm gonna basically, Lucifer's gonna take me and all my demon friends to heaven, and it's gonna be awesome. And Cass is like, you realize, like, that's not what's happening, right? And she's like, I think you're wrong. Because he cares about us. Lucifer cares about us. And he's like, oh, really? Well, a demon named Crowley told me that Lucifer sees you guys as a means to an end, and he's gonna destroy you all. And Meg is like, oh, Crowley's a fucking idiot. And just so you know, my father, he's here with me, and he cares about me. Sorry that your dad's a fucking deadbeat.
Okay, in that moment, she's very much giving the, like, my father, the creator of Pop-Tarts.
No, literally. She's like, well, my dad works at Nintendo, so.
No, literally. She's giving, like, Oh, I almost said Draco Malfoy, but I was like, ah!
Don't evoke that name here.
Yeah, I also do think it's very stupid of Castiel to be like, yeah, my friend Crowley. I'm like, oh, so you're like showing your entire hand?
He's blowing up his spot. Well, because Cass is he. I mean, to be fair, I think the whole point of this is that he's trying to distract her, and I think he probably knew that she would know who Crowley is, and like it would give her give her like something to latch onto while he keeps working on this pipe.
Yeah.
Because in this moment, this pipe that he has been looking at, in this moment, like flies down. The bolt comes undone. No water comes out, but it does hit Meg in the back and pushes her like through the fire, and now she's like trapped in the circle as well. And Cass puts his hand on her head like to smite her, and nothing happens. And she starts to kind of laugh, and she's like, oh my god, you can't gank a demon anymore because you're not connected to the Holy Spirit. You're not connected to heaven, you impotent sap.
And there's like a weird sexual tension here as well.
It's like one-sided like, sexual tension.
Yeah, but it's also like, okay, girl, like
it's
Cass
like, girl,
you
want him so bad it makes you look stupid, yet he is out here. Yeah, it's not happening for you.
He's out here rebelling for a man, like.
But she's like, you impotent sap, and he's like, yeah, well, I might not be able to gank a demon, but I can still do this, and like kicks her face first down into the fire and walks over her to get out.
This is where his cunt era starts, because he's starting to do shots with their family. He's doing cunt shit like this. Like, this is where him kind of entering his evil era starts. And you're like, you know what, sir? Slay, king. Like,
yeah. We're back at the farm. There's like earthquakes are happening, and Lucifer is like standing over this grave, and Cass appears near Sam and Dean, and he's like, okay, be quiet, don't say anything, shh. And then Lucifer turns around and they're gone, and he's like, well, that's all right. Hello, death. So he succeeded in his ritual. We cut back. We're at Bobby's home, and his TV is on, and it's like reports now that the storm system has destroyed several towns in Paulding County, Missouri, which is crazy because this is not, I did find that this historical site is not in Paulding County, so that's fun. But they're like, oh, there's like this, like a bunch of people have died, and like so much property damage is happening, and like it's gonna keep going. And then we see that Dean, Sam, and Bobby are standing there, and Bobby is looking at this photo that he had them all take, and he grabs it and he tosses it in the fire, and then the screen fades to black as the camera zooms in on Joe's face.
Why did they burn the photo?
I think, okay, I read that it was like, maybe it was to try to give them a hunter's funeral because they were no bodies to burn.
But their bodies literally were burned.
Well, okay, but it wasn't like but like you wouldn't call that cremation.
But like the whole point of taking the photo is to last that was the whole reason they did it, and then they were like, never mind. Also, Dean is making a really stupid fucking face in that picture. It's like a bad version of his blue steel, and you're like, can you be normal? Can you be normal? Like,
yeah.
The next episode has one of the best character introductions of all time.
Oh, fuck. Oh my god, I'm so excited because we're like, see, now that Crowley's here, I'm like, I have a like reinvigorated enjoyment of the show.
Yeah, like for a little while. Just for the dying embers, you know?
That is so true.
You know what I mean? Was there anything else you wanted to tell us about Crowley or anything else about this episode? that you thought of?
Yeah, I mean, I find this episode really good. I think it is like when season 5 shines, because I feel like the episodes in season 5 that are like I think the story is convoluted, yes.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of things where I'm like, this show has too many episodes per season, which is not something I say often. But it does have some really good ones. It's just that they're interspersed with some really bad / mid ones. But overall, like, I feel like there are more okay to good episodes in this season than not, but it's just kind of the start of a trend.
Yeah, the ratio will start to decrease.
Until suddenly it's all bad episodes. It's like that scene in Pacific Rim where they're like, initially bad episodes came every 10 episodes. Now they come every 5. And if our calculations are correct, it'll be every episode in just a season or 2.
Yeah, no, that's literally it. Also, the title of the episode is a reference to Dante's Inferno. So,
yeah.
You know, there's that.
Yeah, wow. A reference in my Supernatural?
It's like they're allergic to writing something without a reference. But you know what? I have to respect it as someone who can't say a sentence without a reference. So, well, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back after our little hiatus. For more Cursed Supernatural content, you can follow us on whatever social medias are left. So that would be Instagram and Tumblr. We are on Blue Sky now. You can follow our TikTok if you're in the US. I don't know if it's going to get banned. We'll be keeping our Twitter, but we're not going to really be posting there, and just know that, like, we don't really check our replies or DMs as much. You can also ask us Cursed Supernatural questions in our Tumblr Ask Box or by emailing us at themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. We mentioned this, I think, in our last episode, but this is our first episode of 2025, and we're going into the Trump administration, so we're going to reshare the resource from the organization Fight for the Future that we mentioned at the top of the episode. It's in our show notes. It's basically a master list of, like, frontline organizations who are not, like, the large national organizations that you can donate to for a bunch of different issues, for Palestine, etc. If you enjoyed listening to us, yes, we're back. Please rate the show. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Tell a friend about the show. It'll be really helpful. We also have our Castiel fanfiction recommendation form that I need to go through more often just for us in our show notes. And we will also hopefully be back to more regular episodes soon. I know we had some delays, but we're getting there. And we'll see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.